Melissa, will you call the roll, please?
Lisa Deacon,
Here.
Scott Gingold,
Here.
Mary McCauley, Mary Beth Burns,
Here.
Mirna Aravallo,
Here.
Violetta Cullen, and Kirill Miranchev.
And with 4 people present, we do have a quorum tonight. Also present tonight is Melissa Klotz, zoning planner. This is a formal meeting, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time, so all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. There are 3 items on the agenda tonight. Is 512 Main here? And 120 Dodge? And 2628 Grosse Pointe? Excellent. All right, since everybody's here, we will go through the agenda, which we don't have meeting minutes yet, so we're moving right on to new business. First of all, I'd like to ask anyone who's going to speak tonight to raise your right hand and swear, and do you swear or affirm, everybody, whoever's going to speak, raising your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Fantastic. All right, Melissa, we're going to start with 512 Main Street. Melissa will read the case into the record.
Anna Vela, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, a Manasir Taco Shop in the C1A Commercial Mixed Use District and the ODM Dempster Main Overlay District, zoning code section 61033. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted July 19th, 2017, standards form, plat of survey, interior site plan, business summary, sustainability practices worksheet, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes excerpt of July 26th, 2017.
All right, and Ms. Vela, if you'd like to come up and present your project.
Hi, my name is Ana Vela, and I'm owner of Amanecer Taco Shop.
And your address, please?
I'm sorry. Our address will be 512 Main Street.
Thank you. Great, go ahead.
We have been a mobile business in Evanston for 2 years now. So we have a food truck and catering business. We work out of an off-site commercial kitchen. So during these 2 years, people have been requesting for us to have a physical location, so we're finally ready to try to do that as well. This is a really tiny retail space. I think it's the tiniest retail space in Evanston. And the way it's going to operate is that there's no kitchen. It is really a taco shop. So all of our food will continue to be prepared out of our off-site commercial kitchen and delivered to this location a couple times each day to have fresh product in. So everything is really pre-packaged, ready to go. Our core target audience are commuters, so we think it's a great location for people who are on their way to the train stations and the bus to pick up some tacos, coffee, pastries. We are planning to be open for breakfast and lunchtime, so as early as 6:37 a.m. We're going to kind of test that and be open till 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. We'll also be open on the weekends, similar times. At some point down the road, we'd like to be open late night Friday and Saturday nights. We specialize in breakfast tacos, but breakfast tacos are eaten all day and they do very well late at night as well. So that's something we would like to try down the road as well.
Where's your commercial kitchen?
It is currently in Skokie on Main and McCormick. So it's just down the road from our shop.
And you said there would be deliveries a couple times a day. Does
Yeah.
that mean 2, or does that mean something more than 2?
Depending on the volume, we're expecting 2 or 3.
So how many hours?
It will probably be every 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. And where will the deliveries take place and how?
We have back door and alley access, so all our deliveries will be done through the back, not through the front. So all the deliveries will come in through the back, nothing happens to the front door. Any food deliveries, if we schedule anything else outside of what we're doing, will also be done through the back.
What sized vehicle will be making your deliveries?
So we have a smart car, so it really doesn't take up a lot of space.
And the smart car won't be parked at this location
No. No, we have a private parking space at our kitchen.
in Skokie?
Yes.
How many employees will be on site?
2 at all times.
2, but no more than 2, or minimum of 2?
We're not anticipating more than 2.
Okay. And where will the employees park?
So all of our employees take public transportation and live in Evanston, so none of our employees actually drive.
What if that changes? Do you have a plan for where employees dependent on driving would park?
I don't have a plan. I know there is some residential parking around the area, so we'll look for some options for them then.
Would you be fine with a condition that the employees not be permitted to use metered parking on Main Street there?
Yeah, we'll make sure that they don't do that.
Are you currently operating in the space right now in some capacity?
No, we've just been going in and out of the space with our contractors.
Are you making any changes to the exterior?
No, we're just adding a blade sign for our restaurant and some window graphics, that's it.
Do you have any equipment that heats up the food since it's pre-made?
It maintains it, so there are hot holding equipment. So it's a practice we've been doing so far for 2 years
Okay. Where have you been doing that?
through our food truck.
Oh, through the food truck, right.
It's a similar
Okay.
process.
Okay.
Which we work really closely with the City of Evanston Health Department, and they're familiar with how we
Okay.
operate.
So the food comes from the commissary hot,
And it's being maintained.
stays hot,
uh-huh.
and it
then
stays
it's-
hot in its transfer, and then it
Yes,
stays
and
hot
placed
into the store.
into
Okay.
warming devices, yep.
Okay.
So I see on the floor plan that's up right now, there's a sidewalk cafe indicated. Is that something you already have permission for, or is that a long-term plan?
That's a long-term plan. We don't have permission for that yet. Because it's such a small space and we're trying to put as much equipment and food and stuff possible, we will only really have space for about 4 people to sit. Also capacity for the restroom, it's a small capacity. So we hope to take advantage of the sidewalk cafe next year.
Okay, and are you already familiar with the city's litter plan?
Yes,
And you're prepared to comply with it?
absolutely.
I thought I read something about you trying to do something in coordination with Sketchbook Brewery.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
understand that.
Yeah, so we are part of the Evanston Latinx Business Alliance. We're both members. I'm actually president of that group. And so we're looking to always come up with opportunities to work together, different businesses together. So because they are around the corner and they don't have access, their customers don't really have access to a lot of food options. We would like to stay open late on Friday and Saturday nights and work with them to have a dedicated taco run between their brewery and our taco shop.
So what does that taco run mean? That means their customers are coming to you, or you're delivering food to them?
We are delivering food to them
Okay.
like walking it over.
Okay.
So that their
drunk people aren't
customers
on the
don't have
street.
to, yeah, so that
All
their
right.
customers don't have to leave.
Just checking. All right.
Not with tacos anyway.
Not with tacos. Drunk people with tacos. With cars, that's a whole different thing. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Nobody on the board? Is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Feel free to have a seat. Is there anybody who'd like to any public comment on this particular project? Alrighty, seeing none, I will go ahead and close the record. All right, thoughts?
Seems like a good use of a small space on a street that has other type 2 restaurants. With the condition about employee parking and setting of appropriate hours, I'm in favor of the project.
Yeah, what hours are we thinking here?
Melissa, what are Lucky Platter's hours or the other hours of the type 2 restaurants on that street?
Other type 2 restaurants in the area typically have a requirement for closing at either 11 p.m. or midnight during the week, and typically midnight on the weekend, though recently we have been going with 1 a.m. on the weekend.
Where? Who's got 1 a.m.?
Oh, probably the last
Sorry.
5 special uses or so that
Right,
you
but
guys
not on
have
Main,
seen.
not on Main.
necessarily right there on Main,
Okay.
but other
Okay.
smaller business districts,
Yeah.
you have approved it.
Yeah, we have. Things that are closer to the university, I think we've gone to 1 a.m.
My thought is the request is for
Yeah.
midnight, so that seems like
Yeah, I'm on board with that too. I almost want to give them 6 a.m. Just because it seems reasonable for people going to and from work.
I agree with Scott's comments. I think this is a good use of a vacant space. I think it makes sense for the commuter traffic, and I think it's a great opportunity for a business, that's been in the community for a couple years and working out of a mobile location to be able to find a bricks and mortar location.
I agree. It's a good use of the space, and it's already a business that's been practicing in Evanston, so just continue.
I happen to agree too. I'm excited that you're able to move from food truck to brick and mortar and you're able to expand your operation. That makes me very excited and happy for you. Plus good tacos are good tacos. How can you go against that? So let's go down the 9 standards for special uses.
Sorry, one thing I wanted to point out that
Yep.
probably is I'm not sure. I've heard other practices, for example, with Temperance, which doesn't have a permit itself to be making food on site and having some issues with permanent or semi-permanent food establishments operating effectively out of their space. So I don't know that anything we're deciding would weigh in on the propriety of that, but I would caution the applicant as well as Sketchbook to make sure that that's kosher with Sketchbook's permissions.
I think that's an excellent point. Okay, so the standards for special use is number 1, is it one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance? And it is. Number 2, is it in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time? It certainly is in keeping with that purpose, which is to promote growth and redevelopment and strengthen our economic base, and a use in that particular location, which it would be hard to press to find any other retail or something else to go into that space, certainly will strengthen that whole strip on Main Street. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. I don't believe that this will cause a negative cumulative effect. I think the bulk of their business is going to be local and neighborhood based. I also don't believe that there are other type 2s on that particular block. There's a coffee house. So there aren't that many on that street. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. In fact, it's going to do the opposite by bringing more vibrancy to the neighborhood and bringing more customers to the neighborhood. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. It is down the street from both, from public transportation, and it will not be causing undue stress on any other services from the city. So I believe that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. I think, again, that the primary customer is someone who's already in the neighborhood and who's already walking down the street or driving down the street. So I don't think that traffic congestion will increase substantially. So I believe that that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. We're at least reusing some architecture that's there, so we're preserving that. I don't believe that there's anything historical about that building, so I do believe that standard has been met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, which is not applicable. And number 9, it complies with all the other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. So, given that, I think we have, we can make a motion, I believe hours. Do we want to stick 7 to 12 or do we want to go 6 to 12?
I think the flexibility of 6 to 12, as the applicant talked about, you know, considering 6:30, considering 7, and I think that is, I think that's a reasonable time frame to start, given the commuter traffic in that area.
Okay. So,
I agree.
So 6 to 12, employee parking off-site, deliveries in the back, and sustainability practices. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Anyone?
On the case of ZBA 17ZMJV-0062, 512 Main Street, that we recommend to City Council for the Type 2 restaurant with the hours of 6 to 12
Yes, midnight.
midnight. And what else do we have? Employee parking off-site, as well as
Deliveries in the rear.
deliveries in the back and the rear.
Sustainability.
And the applicant follow the sustainability program.
Friendly amendment before I second it. The employee parking should not be using the meters.
Do you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Excellent.
I'll second the motion then.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And with a vote of 4 to 0, your motion will, your case will go to City Council for their vote. Good luck with your project. All right, moving on to 120 Dodge Avenue. Melissa, can you read that into the record, please? Oh, we're doing everything here. Okay. So, sorry, are we, since this has both zoning variances and a special use, why are we making a recommendation?
Because the special use goes to city council, all variations go to city council as well.
Okay. But I'm running through both the standards for major variation and special uses?
Correct.
The same standards as though we were deciding a major variation.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Dobson Plaza, Inc., property owner, applies for a special use permit to expand an existing retirement home, Dobson Plaza, and to request major zoning relief for a one-story addition and patio in the R4 General Residential District. The applicant proposes to expand an existing retirement home where a special use is required for a retirement home. Zoning Code Section 6853. Major zoning relief for 46.8% building lot coverage, where a maximum 40% is allowed, Zoning Code Section 6856, and where 40.1% currently exists. 85.4% impervious surface coverage, where a maximum 55% is allowed, Zoning Code Section 6859, and 77.4% currently exists. A 1.2-foot front yard, Dobson Street setback, where 27 feet is required, Zoning Code Section 6857B1, and 26.5 feet currently exists. a .9-foot street side yard setback, Dodge Avenue, where 15 feet is required, zoning code section 6857B2, and 5.9 feet currently exists, and a patio in the front yard, Dobson Street, where patios are only permitted in rear yards, zoning code section 6463, table 4A10. The requested special use and similar major zoning relief was previously approved in ordinance 20-0-06, adopted February 27, 2006, which is now expired. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted June 27, 2017. Major variation application submitted June 27, 2017. Standards forms, plat of survey, site plan, interior floor plan, landscape plan, rendering, previous special use and variation approval of ordinance 20-0-06, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper draft meeting minutes excerpt of August 9, 2017.
Who's presenting for 120 Dodge? If you could start by giving us your name and address, that'd be great.
Charlotte Cohn, I'm the administrator at Dobson Plaza Nursing Home. I live at 6521 North Trumbull, and we're here this evening to present what we had already presented once before. However, we've updated the plans to be, I think, a little bit more attractive, which will improve the looks of the building and improve the neighborhood as well. I think that the writing here is a little bit confusing. We're not adding one story. We're expanding the day room that we have, the living room for the patients. And the reason that this day room needs to be expanded is because as the patients are aging in place, they are in need of more adaptive equipment, which takes up more room.
Could you explain what the adaptive equipment is,
There
please?
are wheelchairs, there are jerry chairs, there are recliners, there's all type of things that residents need once they're not as ambulatory as they were when they first were admitted. So that's been a great need of ours. We're very tight on space, and I think this would really be important for them, for us, and for the neighborhood.
And how big is your existing lounge right now?
It's about 10 by 10. It's very small.
How long do the residents typically live in this facility?
A long time, about 5 years minimum. But patients are coming in at an older age as well. They're coming in their 80s, their mid-80s.
Can you clarify the number of square feet that the addition is, and is that the same number of square feet that was proposed when this was last approved?
Let me present the architect who can give you a little bit more information than I can.
Great, thank you.
If we can have your name and business address too, please.
Sure. My name is Monika Jelska. I am with ML Group, and my address is 3424 Oakton Street in Skokie, Illinois. Dobson has been in Evanston for over 50 years and has provided outstanding care over the time. The patients have been aging in place or living to an older age, so room for adaptive equipment is needed. The same project received a special use permit in February of 2006. At the time, the project was not able to be realized, but the need for the addition still remains. The existing lounge spaces are very minimal and need to be expanded. To improve quality of life for the residents, the building would like to provide additional lounge and recreation areas. The addition that is being added provides this area. The residents enjoy to watch people come and go and the activity of the town. The addition has been designed to provide views of the outside and landscaped areas on the property. With this design, they will be able to watch the happenings on Dodge Avenue and Dobson Street. The storefront glass system will allow them to feel much more part of the outdoors while remaining in a safe environment. The octagon portion of the addition will allow views of the street, plus have views of and access to the landscape side yard along Dobson Street. The extensive landscaping area will also be of benefit for the neighbors across the street on Dobson by providing a more beautiful streetscape adjacent to their homes. The landscape area will provide a fully integrated hardscape and planting area. The residents will be able to access this through the addition. The existing building is a 3-story, 24,610 square feet facility and is a Type 2A construction. It has a brick veneer and a standing seam metal roof. The new addition remains unchanged in the area from the previous submittal. It retains the identical footprint from the 2006 submittal of 1,785 square feet. The elevations are revised from the 2006 submittal to update and enhance the building. The roof has been revised from 16.5 feet to 15 feet in height.
Excuse me. Can you please discuss? I'm interested to hear about how you plan to mitigate the additional drainage issues by removing that will result from removing impervious space.
So we are working with the civil engineer to come up with some strategies for the.
You don't have a strategy right now?
Excuse me, sorry. Yes, when we made the presentation, we have changed a lot of pervious landscape area to impervious area so that it will drain. The building has 3 sump pumps that drains water right now. We have no problem with water buildup.
You're increasing the amount of impervious space, which means there will be more water. So have you considered the effect that more water will have on the ability to drain from the property?
After they did the review of the plans and the way the water drains, and it drains into our building, and that's why we have 3 sump pumps that pumps the water, we have never had a water problem, and the addition will not cause any additional stress on what is already existing.
Who concluded that?
When we discussed it with the architect and we discussed it with the, when we were before the committee.
What committee?
Dapper.
Have you had an engineer actually look at the potential problem, and have they rendered a professional opinion about the excess drain water?
They did, and they said that they.
Do you have an opinion that you can submit?
I could, yes, no problem.
I'd like to see that.
I think that civil engineering is required as part of their permit submittal. So necessarily, it's going to be reviewed by the city engineers, and they're not going to allow for water to be a problem to any other additional property.
Right, but once we give the permission
Yeah.
to create 8% more impervious space, the permission is given, period. They still have to get a permit to do what they want, but
the permit,
we're allowing the property to have 85% of the space be impervious.
Yes, but engineering won't allow them to cause water problems on any adjacent property. So if city engineering determines that additional measures are necessary, they will require that as a condition of the permit, and they won't give them the permit without seeing that engineering. So
Since we're recommending to city council on this, assuming we
Yeah.
are in favor of the project,
Yeah.
I would suggest that it be an appropriate condition that opinion, that positive opinion be accepted by the permitting process.
by engineering prior to issuing the variance. Okay.
Sorry, you can continue
Yep, you
from
were
my
in the middle.
standpoint.
Where did I stop? Okay, so the elevations are revised from the 2006 submittal to update and enhance the building. We will match the existing face brick on the octagon portion of the addition and provide a standing seam metal roof that relates to the existing building as well. On the addition, we will also provide an area of storefront glass to provide the residents with a connection to the outdoor activity while remaining in a safe environment. The portion of the addition with the storefront windows will have a flat roof protected by a single ply membrane system. The area of storefront windows will also provide a modern update to the look of the building. The 2 adjacent buildings to the south both have a significant amount of storefront windows. The portion of storefront windows on our project will provide continuity and harmony with architecture in the immediate surrounding area, in addition to providing the residents with unobstructed views. Further aesthetic enhancements intended for the renovation will be painting the existing standing seam roof a warm gray color, and refurbishing the existing canopy element over the main entrance to the building. The canopy will be retrofitted with architectural aluminum panels that shall be painted gray to match the new roof color. The hardscape for the landscape area on the side of the building will be constructed of pavers and will benefit the residents of the building by allowing them to have a place to sit outside. Currently, they have the existing patio area on Dutch Avenue side of the building, but this patio will need to be eliminated to create the necessary addition. We would like to relocate this outdoor space to the nicely landscaped side yard to maintain an outdoor area for their use. This area on the side also keeps them more secure and secluded from the busier public sidewalks and street. The purpose of this project is really to provide the residents with the basic human needs of comfortable interior and exterior living space.
Can you clarify in the photo that we're looking at where the patio is planned?
So it will be behind that octagon portion of the new addition. So you cannot see it on the rendering.
That's on the north side, the north
Right,
side of the
along
building.
Dobson.
Right, and that
Yes.
area where we have the glass front right now, that's where the existing patio is. So
Right.
that is replacing the existing patio, so the only addition really is just the hexagon for the room itself.
Okay. And that's a glassed-in porch area, essentially?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
the transition between the existing day room, which are those little windows to the left of where the patio is now. I mean, where the glass, that's the existing day room. So that will be the pass-through, through that glass area into the new day room.
Okay, so then the addition is that building to the far north, and then the patio is
Is
west
now
of...
the- No, the patio is, well, yeah, the grassy area, it's really not a patio, we're not doing a patio. We're doing all, see that, go back, right there. See the exit to the west, right there. That will exit into the garden area.
Okay.
That's the garden area, that whole area right there,
Okay, and then at the very top is Dobson there.
right.
Okay.
So that's, the Dobson, matter of fact, is very minuscule compared to the garden area.
And what is your current occupancy?
97.
And are you aware of any objections to your plan from the neighboring residents or properties?
that we know of.
I have a technical question for you because I'm trying to figure out. And when I look at the elevations, it seems as though the first floor is 3 steps out of grade. So if you're at that first floor level and you're going through the sunroom into the recreation room all at the same level, how are you getting down? How is that handicapped accessible out there? Because I'm not seeing a ramp on the plans. And you didn't give us an elevation of that north side.
There won't be any ramp. It's all going to be, it has to be flush so that one space goes right into the next.
No,
The
I
patio
understand.
right
So
now-
are you suggesting the patio is raised?
Our patio is raised, yeah.
Okay.
The existing patio?
I was misunderstanding.
Yes.
The new
yes,
one.
Oh, no. The
Yeah,
new
yeah.
one.
No, the new.
No, there's no patio. There's only
The
garden
new,
space.
the new walkways, the new brick pavers, all the plants.
That's a step down.
So it's not handicapped accessible.
Sure.
If it's one step down, it's not handicapped accessible.
We have it accessible because we have the ramp in the front, and people will come around to go into the garden. And there will be from the sidewalk a space like a incline
Okay.
to come into the garden area.
Okay, so if you can ambulate, you can get down the step into the garden area.
Correct.
If you can't, you're going out, down the front ramp.
Right.
Down the sidewalk, around and over and back in.
Right.
Okay.
Because we do not want to add any additional rampage, because that will take away more of the space, the impervious space.
So does that mean that wheelchair users are exiting on Dodge Avenue and coming around the front to Dobson in order to get into that green space area?
They do that now, too, is to go into the patio. A lot of families, when they come to visit, like to come out through the ramp, go down the street, and then they come up. There's a little ramp area that goes up to the patio now. It will be basically the same.
Do you have any pictures of that side of the building?
Actually, we do, yes.
That would be great. Picture set tells 1,000 words. You know you're giving this to me permanently, right? You are. You are. It's applicant's Exhibit A. Okay. So what you're showing me is what's existing, right? So you have a patio where the new sunroom is going to be, that's raised. And then there is a sloping down to the sidewalk, but that whole north area is all at the sidewalk level. And in the proposed, you plan on having that at the sidewalk level too.
Right, you see this? This is the
Yep.
existing patio right here.
But all this over here, this is all going to be, so when you're one step down, right, theoretically, right? The side would be up there. So you're going to have to be 3 steps down. If you're 3 steps up there, you got to be 3 steps down here.
Well, that's how we are right now. You go
Right.
3
You're
steps
3 steps up, so you're going to be
Here
3
you've
steps
got
down.
your patio.
Okay.
You
All
come
right.
out through the rampage, and then you go there.
I just want to be clear
Yeah.
that to get out of the recreation room, you have to go down 3 steps. Anybody in a wheelchair has to go back out the front of the building and around. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Does that meet the fire code?
Yes,
course.
because they've got,
You have 2 other exits.
they're actually.
other exits, I'm
They're
sorry.
actually showing all their distances on their plan, that it only has to be 75 feet from an exit.
Right, we have 3 existing exits right now.
Yeah.
So going out to the patio will be an additional one. I mean, to the garden.
Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any? You guys have any more? Okay. Do you guys have anything you want to sum up with?
Not really?
Okay, fantastic. Go ahead and have a seat. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on 120 Dobson? Come on up. Dodge, wherever I am. Sorry. If I can have your name and your address, please.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Joseph Weidman, and I live at 2004 Dobson, and I have resided there for 40 years.
Okay?
First of all, the variance that they are trying to achieve, they're already out of compliance. Because we, as the Square Block Committee back in 1984 or 85, allowed them to get a variance. And at that time, they told the city, and we came together, that they were able to put the addition on, but nothing else, because they don't have the space. And if you came out there, you'd see what I'm talking about. But that's not the thing that really bothers us, is that we asked when they first came in if they would not have their employees park on our street. And we pretty much came to an agreement that no employees would park on our street. And it's just been a nightmare on Dobson. They'll leave their cars, I don't know whether they work 12 hours a day or what, they'll leave their cars in front of your house all night. If you say anything to them, they will get belligerent with you. So I don't think that they need a variance. And as Mrs. Cohn, and I've spoken with her many times, I've been there and have spoken with her, and I've gotten really nowhere with her, but she wants to take and give a different appearance to the community in the neighborhood, and that's not going to happen, because she has a shipping container that sits on that property that's been there for 20 years. And that's an eyesore in itself. Now, after 20 years, you want to beautify our neighborhood? I don't think so. And the rest of my neighbors will speak the same thing, because they're here with me tonight. We've had nothing but problems from the people that work there. They'll eat, drink their beer or whatever when they get off from work, and leave their bottles, their garbage or whatever on our street. They care nothing about our neighborhood. And then they take and they push these elderly people down the middle of the street on Dobson, because the city hasn't trimmed the trees in 20 years. Their limbs hanging in the trees. These people can't even come down. They literally pushed the elderly people in wheelchairs down the street every day, down Dobson. I mean, so she doesn't need a variance. They need competency. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Come on up. Give us your name and your address, please.
Okay, I'm Alvin Carter, 1924 Dobson. I'll agree with every word he's saying.
Perfect.
Plus that container they have there,
Yeah.
skunks and stuff live under it. Rats under there. So it's like, I mean, we live there, we're paying tax. So, you know, the people who work at that place, like he's saying,
Right.
they come there to park, they like, you say, you know what, can you park over in your, you know, neighborhood over there? Go, let them find your park. They leave the car, oh, is it your street? That's the answer we get. We live there, and I've been there for 22 years. So it's like an eyesore. Anyway, that container, when they come in the alley to deliver their food, what they do, use the truck, block the alley. You got to go all the way around like 2 blocks. And if you talk to the drivers, they curse you out. And if we're paying tax, we should have a little bit of say. You see what I'm saying?
I do. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate your comments. Anybody else? I'm just going to do it all at once.
Hi, my name is Erica Carter, 1924 Dobson Street. My father and I would just like to agree with him and with my neighbor Joe as well. My mom is handicapped, and so many a time she would come home from work. She works really long hours, comes home at night, and then she would have to call me outside to go park her car 1 or 2 blocks away because, as they already stated, their employees are filling up the street. And so, yeah, I just have questions about like shipping containers and like if you're trying to beautify the neighborhood now, like just be compliant with just respecting residents. Always an issue with parking, again, shipping container, and then just they will also not only just push their like wheelchairs down the street, but they'll cover the sidewalks. I've had to walk around and walk in the street sometimes because residents from the Dobson Plaza are just in the way. And so, again, I question whether or not you're really going to help beautify the neighborhood if you're already not compliant with what you said you would be compliant with. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yeah, we're going to ask you to come up and respond.
I do want to hear from the applicant on a few of those points, but I also wanted to hear from staff about the assertion that the 1984 variation that was granted was somehow an agreement that would max out the development on the space, and whether you've looked into that, whether we've looked into that, or know what those conditions were at the time.
I did look at it. I don't remember the exact wording at this point, but ultimately, because this addition triggers a new special use since it is considered an expansion of the use, this is the opportunity that it can either add to those conditions or void out those conditions, however you choose to condition this current special use.
I may be wrong on this, but in my view, the special use issue is a permission to use the property in a certain way, and the variation that we're also considering, which is the one that deals with encroachment on lot lines and impervious space and lot coverage, is a different standard and issue entirely. That if we've seen it in other cases, for example, where we say, okay, you can have a variation to build, for example, a coach house, but it's on the condition that it never be something else not happen in the future. And if that condition was imposed on this variation 30 years ago, I think it's potentially relevant to deciding the issue tonight.
It is relevant, but it can ultimately be overrode by what is recommended tonight.
Understood. And I also recognize the zoning ordinance has changed a number of times since 1984, so that's something to be considered also.
Ms. Cohn, if you'd like to come up and address your neighbor's concerns, we would appreciate that.
A couple of weeks ago, Joe came to speak to me about the problem of parking. And I told him that those were not our employees who were parking there, because we have over 23 spaces that will provide for our staff, and especially in the evening. The staff,
How many staff do you have on
on the evening shift, we
Yeah.
have three, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people.
Okay, 8 at night,
Eight, and
but I
the
would
night
imagine you have
shift-
most during the day,
Most
right?
are during the day. So
And-
I try to explain to him that.
How many
our-
employees do you have at a time that would use 23 spaces?
You mean during the day?
Yeah.
Counts for the
Most
23
of our people,
spaces.
most of our staff comes by public transportation. We have about 10 people during the day who have cars. And we have an additional parking lot across the street. That's why we were granted the 1984 variation, was due to the fact that we had the additional parking across the street.
Who else uses the parking spaces?
The families who come to visit,
Visitors?
yes. And we did investigate after Joe came to speak to me, and we became aware of the fact that the apartment building on Howard now charges their people rent to park their cars. And we see them walking through the alley, and they are parking on Dobson. And that's been a big problem, because I guess they don't want to pay the additional fee. They're paying their rent, which is high, and then he wants to charge them additionally for any parking spaces.
Let me just follow up, sorry. So you said you have 10 people who work during the day, employees that require parking,
During the day, yes. Mhm.
And-
And they park across the street.
and 8 at night? And are the 23?
No, I'm sorry. You wanted to know the total number of people who work in the afternoon, but not all of them have cars.
So, okay, so 10 people work in the afternoon.
No, 10 people park during the day. And in the evening, when we have 8 to 10 people who work, I would say about 4 people have cars. When I come in the evening to make rounds, if I'll come at 7, 8 o'clock, there's 4 cars in the parking lot.
Okay, and when you describe the 23 spaces you have, are they all in that lot across the street?
No, there's 10 across the street, there's 10 in the back of our building, and 3 on the side.
Okay, so if I'm
And plus,
correctly,
plus we have 3 spaces in the front of the building.
if I'm correctly summarizing, at the most, at any one time, you have a need for 10 employee parking spaces. Is that right?
Right.
So, since what we're discussing includes a special use permit, on which we can recommend to City Council that there be parking conditions, are you amenable to a condition that 10 of those 23 spaces be set aside for employee parking? That is, visitors not be allowed to use those 10 spaces?
The expanded day room will not be causing any additional staff and will not be causing any additional visitors. Everything remains exactly the same. We're not adding more bedrooms, we're not adding more staff, we're
Right.
not adding more visitors.
I got that. But on a special use permit, which you're applying for, we can include a request for a parking condition. Does that seem like a reasonable condition to place on a special use permit for this facility?
I don't think it's necessary,
Why not?
because the space is what it is. The parking space has been sufficient, has worked, and the problem, unfortunately, that the neighbors are discussing is not our staff, because I spoke to every staff member after Joe came to see what the problem was.
We
and
can
they told me
ensure
they're
that's the
not-
case, though, if we make a condition on the parking. We can ensure that
what?
there are 10 spaces set aside for your 10
There-
employees that require them, and that's what those spaces will be designated for.
Correct.
So
They are. We
So
have
it's a
the-
win-win condition.
Well,
then.
it was in the 84. In 84, when that special use was granted, that lot that we purchased across the street was specially designated for employee parking. And residents don't park there, visitors don't park there. I don't understand. This really is a non-issue.
Okay, so it's a continuation, it would be a continuation then of an existing condition.
Right. Whatever the conditions were in 84, we agreed to, and we complied with them at all times. The pad that is on the space right now was put up when we originally got the special use permit, that we put the pad up to prepare ourselves for the addition. Unfortunately, my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, and I didn't proceed with the project at that time. And that's why we're renewing it now, because the need has become so great.
What do you mean the pod?
The
That's what
container.
they were talking about, a container. We have a pod that we emptied out a lot of space so that they could start the construction.
So that has been there since 2006, but the plan is to
Oh, it was over
remove that.
2007.
The plan is to remove that.
Oh, absolutely.
as part of this project?
Yeah, as soon as the project's completed, it would be removed because everything can be moved back in again.
And what is the time frame for construction of the proposed project?
We think it'll take about 5 to 6 months.
Starting in, once approval would be granted, when do you expect to start the project?
We really wanted to try to get a foundation in before the frost, if you will allow us to.
Frost is a long time away. You've got plenty of time. Got plenty of time.
And we have, we monitor all kinds of infestation. We monitor everything. I have not seen rats. I have not seen mice. I haven't seen anything. And that pot is right there on our property and right at our back door.
One of the neighbors mentioned shrubbery, and I know part of it is city tree trimming, and unfortunately, you're going to have to call 311, bug your alderman, and will get right on that.
We don't have a problem. I don't know what they're referring to.
So is there a shrubbery issue of your shrubbery encroaching into the sidewalk?
No, not at all.
So if there's not a problem, then why is staff pushing residents down the middle of Dobson?
Nobody's pushing staff down the middle of Dobson.
Not staff,
Even
residents.
families.
Staff is pushing residents down.
No.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So you're saying that
You've never seen that?
I have never seen that. We have family members, and if somebody goes out with their mother or dad or whoever, their loved one, we have 1 or 2 people. There isn't a parade going down the street. You have one person coming out with their mother and going down Dodge for a walk or turning on Dobson to walk. There's never been a problem. Our sidewalk is big enough to accommodate a wheelchair and people walking by.
These are not zoning issues.
Yeah, they aren't zoning issues.
And there are no trees that are overhanging into the street or over
Right.
the sidewalk at all.
Okay. All right. Do the neighbors feel as though your questions were answered? Because keep in mind, right, our purview is zoning. We don't control landscaping, we don't control parking, we don't control city tree trimming, we can't do any of that. So we can try and cover as much as we are allowed to cover. So, with that in mind, did you have any other questions you wanted clarification from while we're here? Hang on, you have to come up. And again, try and keep it to a zoning issue, right?
She's saying they do not push them down the street,
Yeah,
and that's not true. There's like sometimes 4 people, 3 people.
Okay.
Sometimes they sit right there. This is the walkway. They sit right in the middle. You either got to go over and down the street to go back around them. You don't live there, so you can't say it. You're not there 24 hours, so you can't say, we live there 24/7.
Joe, I'm there 12
I'm
hours
not
a
Joe.
day.
hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm there 12 hours a day, and I'm
Right.
there in the morning. It's none of the residents go out in the morning. First, they have their breakfast, they have their morning care, they get their therapy. And if they go out at 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. They come in the afternoon maybe if they come to visit at 4. But that's it. That's very limited amount of time, and I'm there. And I have never seen anybody pushing residents in the middle of the street.
So-
That's a hazard. You're not supposed to.
You're looking me right in the face and say I'm lying.
May I
I'm
interject
not
for a
saying you're
minute?
lying. I'm
No.
saying that I haven't
May,
seen it.
may I
hang on.
interject for a minute?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen
Ms.
any
Cohn.
residents.
This seems like a dialogue that should happen off the record between the 2 neighbors. I will just say, this is not a zoning issue, 1.
No.
2,
I know.
it strikes me that the facility would not want its employees walking their patients down the middle of the street because it's a potential liability. So
Okay.
there are a
Hold on.
lot of ways
Hold
that
on.
you can deal with this outside of zoning.
All right, can we take pictures of it when they're doing it?
You can take pictures of whatever you'd like.
And we could take it and show it to her.
Yes, but we don't need them
But
here
what
at
she's
zoning.
gonna do now, she's gonna go tell him, don't do it.
Isn't that perfect? Isn't that what you want? You want
Yeah,
them to
but-
not do it?
No, but we want to prove that we're not lying. You see what I'm saying?
The net is you just don't want them going down the street anymore. So to the extent that we can get there,
I assume Ms. Cohn doesn't want them being pushed down the middle of the street, so maybe she's just unaware of it.
You live
there.
on Dobson. Do you live on Dobson?
That's my
Right.
place. I'm there all the
Do you
time.
live on Dobson?
Do I
I'm
live
sorry,
there?
we're going to
My
have to
husband
stop
says I
this
do.
now, right? We've gone beyond what we consider to be our purview, and our purview is really zoning. But I would encourage you, as an employer in the neighborhood and as trying to be a neighbor with them, to try and work as closely as you can with them to address their concerns,
I agree.
right? It's their neighborhood as well, and you guys should all be working together. So we encourage you to make it a good environment for everyone.
That's a good idea.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close the record?
Well, if there is a concern about them sitting in the front and walking around in the front, I think that the new garden will really eliminate that, because instead of just having grass and bushes there, they'll have access to that garden, and they'll be in the garden rather than in whatever they're saying is happening right now. I think it'll be an incentive and an impetus and something really that people would look forward to, sitting in the garden rather than sitting on the sidewalk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we are going to close the record. And so thoughts on this project?
I have thoughts.
Excellent.
With respect to the variation aspect of the project, and we're talking about really the continued use of space that's existing non-conforming, and the real significant issue to me is the increased impervious space and the effect that that may have on drainage. And in my view, I'd be okay with that variation, with the variation requested, assuming we condition it on an engineering approval of the drainage implications from additional overflow that may result from the increased impervious space, and a conclusion that there wouldn't be any incremental negative impact on the adjacent properties.
Right. Well, I think a bulk of that was covered in the Dapper notes, in some depth there. So I believe that all the appropriate departments are on top of the situation, but I think it's a good idea to put it in the recommendation so that City Council knows what we're thinking.
So that's how I feel about the variation.
Yep.
With respect to the special use, I again think that it makes sense to recommend the continuation of the special use since it has expired. It's not a different special use than already is existing, and it would be a significant hardship to not recommend it. However, we have an opportunity to condition that, and a couple of things that I heard that I think are appropriate conditions for that are the 10 of the 23 spaces that the facility has be designated as employee parking spaces for use by employees only. And the second would be that the storage pod must be removed from the property upon completion of this project, or within a certain amount of time, whichever happens first.
I agree with.
That's it? Those are your two conditions?
I think
agree.
so.
I agree with that as well. I think that actually creating space, a nice space for the residents, I think that will do a lot to get them off the sidewalk. We certainly know that happens. We can see that happen at other similar facilities, so I don't doubt that it happens there as well. So I think that giving them a dedicated place and a pretty place would be a much nicer environment than sitting on the sidewalk. Lisa?
I agree with the comments, your comments and Scott's comments. It's a very tight site. And to the extent that improvements can be made for the residents there, I support that to the extent that they're not, unduly infringing on the neighbors. I think that makes sense. I think the DAPR report did address the impervious surface issue, but I'm fine with including it as some sort of condition as a part of, as part of our discussion here. That would be my biggest concern with, what we're being asked to approve tonight.
Okay, with that, I'm going to get to do 9 standards of major variations and 9 standards for special uses, 7 standards for major variations. So let's start with that. Of the 7 standards for major variations, number 1 is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. I think that given the testimony that we've heard about residents in the neighborhood and residents on sidewalks, I think that actually getting the residents off the sidewalks and giving them a nice place to be and to sit outside and enjoy nature will substantially help the neighborhood. I also think that some of the conditions we're going to put on this application will actually help the neighborhood as well. So I think that we have met those standards. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The intent is to allow for modifications to properties in keeping with current needs of homeowners or residents in this case. And I do think that the need for additional space, given an older resident and one who is less ambulatory, is a significant factor here. So I do believe that that variation, that standard has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. This is a tight property, and they don't really have a lot of space to be able to change, to make improvements to their property, to make life better for their residents. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. I do think that if we don't approve the variance, I think we are necessarily affecting the quality of life of some of the residents. And I have a particular difficulty with that, of not allowing for a better quality of life for residents based on giving them some additional space to be able to live in. So I believe that standard has been met.
So I agree with that, but I just want to add
Yep.
that I think that if the drainage issue from the additional space ends up being a problem, that it is not worth the trade-off for the residents to have a little bit of additional living space by creating a risk for adjacent neighbors of additional flooding or an unacceptable amount of additional flooding.
Okay. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property or that there's a public benefit. So there's actually 2 of those in this case. In this, because the owners can't change the occupancy of the unit, of the building, they can't get more income out of having these additional spaces. So I believe that portion of the standard has been met. Additionally, there is definitely a public benefit to be had by providing a nice place for the residents to congregate and gather outside that is not on the sidewalk. So I do believe that those standards have been met.
I agree with that, but I would just add that I think the public benefit is offset by a public harm unless the drainage issue is concluded to be not a problem.
Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The difficulty is given the lot size, which has not, and the existing building and existing parking on the lot. So I do believe that that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulations among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I do believe that this is the minimum change necessary. These are not large rooms. They're very small, quite frankly, and I think that the occupancy is for standing people and not for people in wheelchairs. So I think the occupancy for these rooms is generous, and I don't think that will actually be the case. So I do believe that this is the minimum change necessary. So are we doing this as 1 or are we doing this as 2? Are we doing 2 motions or 1? I say 2. Keep it clean. Let's do
Agree.
2.
I
All right.
agree.
So can I have a motion to recommend, because we're only
Yes,
recommending,
I'll make the
right?
motion. Since this involves both even though we're making two motions, since this involves both a major variation and a special use, we're the recommending body to Civil Council on both motions. And with respect to the major variation, therefore, requested in application 17 ZMJV-0063 regarding the property at 120 Dodge Avenue, I move that we recommend to City Council that the variations be approved with the following conditions. One, that the applicant provide the engineering opinion that they've already obtained with respect to drainage, implications of the increased impervious surface. And two, that the city's civil engineer involved in the permitting process provide an agreement that the additional water flow off the property caused by the additional impervious surface won't have a negative impact on the adjacent properties. And three, that the property otherwise be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted.
And friendly amendment, so number 4 is that the pod be removed upon substantial completion of the project.
I was going to
Sorry,
add that for
upon-
the special use, but it could go with
okay.
either one.
And I would actually say make it on certificate of occupancy. Make it contingent that that be removed in order to get the certificate of occupancy, because that's the way it will actually get removed.
Let me add the pod to the special
Okay,
use.
you want to do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it has been moved. Second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And with a vote of 4-0, that goes to City Council with a recommendation for approval with the conditions that we have noted.
Three conditions, Melissa, just for your notes.
Yes. So now we will move on to standards for special uses. There are 9 of those. And number 1 is that it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, so that standard's been met. Number 2, it's in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. One of the purposes is to retain and enhance businesses that are already in our city, and I think this is one of those times when we can enhance that business specifically for the customers or the residents, and so I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. I don't believe that there are other special uses in the near vicinity to this particular property, and there are certainly very few, what are we calling this? A retirement home, thank you, retirement homes in the city. So I don't believe that there will be a negative cumulative effect of this particular use. So I believe that that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of the property in the neighborhood. With these two additions, with the addition and the patio, the resident patio, I do believe that it will increase the value of neighborhood property by getting the residents off of the street and providing a nice place for them to watch the world go by, as long as we have solved the civil engineering issue and that there is no water and no deleterious effect on any of the neighborhood properties. So I believe that that standard has been met, assuming civil engineering is appropriately designed. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There's been testimony that there will be no change in resident use and no change in employees and no change in the business as a whole. So I don't believe that there will be any changes to the way the public facilities are used and services are. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. Again, there's no change to the actual number of occupants and employees, so I don't believe we're talking about adding any particular traffic to this location. So I believe that that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. I don't think this is applicable, but it is trying to make the building certainly more attractive. So I think that that standard has been met where it can. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. I don't believe that that standard is applicable. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. And given that we have just recommended approval on some major variations, it will certainly meet that standard. So,
I make a second motion in the matter 17 ZMJV-0063 regarding 120 Dodge Avenue that we recommend to City Council to approve the special use requested with the following conditions. 1, that 10 of the 23 parking spaces that the facility has the exclusive use of be designated and marked as employee parking only, and that the employees be required to use those spaces rather than street parking. 2, that the storage pod that's been discussed be removed from the property as a condition to receiving the certificate of occupancy or within 7 months after City Council's approval of the special use requested, whichever comes first. Because they said the project would take 5 to 6 months. That gives an extra month as required, but at least we'll make sure that it
you
gets
should
off.
say 7 months then from the date of permit issuance. There's a lag between.
7 months. Well, I want to make sure if the project doesn't go forward that it gets removed.
Yeah. Okay. How about 7 months of permit issuance or the date of City Council approval?
I accept that amendment. And 3, that the property otherwise be developed and used in accordance with the testimony and documents submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? With a vote of 4-0, your motion carries and goes to City Council with a recommendation for approval. We will strongly encourage you, Ms. Cohen, to work with your neighbors and to address their issues, because you are only as successful as your neighborliness. And so it would behoove you to really work with them to solve the problems. They've been there a long time, and they deserve to be heard and respected. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next case, which is 2628 Grosse Pointe Road. Too much paper, man. Too much paper. At least I'm doing my best. I don't think it's going to happen. Yes, let's go. Let's read this one into the record. We're excited.
Stephen Kolber, architect, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, Nick's Organic Fast Food, zoning code section 6953, a drive-through facility, zoning code section 6953, and for a Type 2 restaurant as an active ground floor use, zoning code section 615.14.7, in the B1A Business District and the OCSC Central Street Overlay District. The applicant also requests major zoning relief for a 20-foot rear yard setback where a 25-foot rear yard setback is required when abutting a residential district, zoning code section 6957G. Pedestrian areas, including parkway and street furniture zone plus sidewalk clear zone of less than 30 feet where 30 feet is required along Grosse Pointe Road and Crawford Avenue, zoning code section 615.14.12, and reduced fenestration and sill heights where a minimum 65% fenestration and 10-foot upper sill heights are required facing Grosse Pointe Road and Crawford Avenue, zoning code section 615.14.14. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted July 24th, 2017. Major variation application submitted July 24th, 2017. Standards forms, zoning analysis, plat of survey, business summary, site plan, elevations, photometric plan, traffic study, letter of concern, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, Dapper draft meeting minutes excerpt of August 9th, 2017, as well as one additional letter of concern that was passed out at the beginning of the meeting.
All right. Who would like to present for 2628 Grosse Pointe?
It's nice.
I don't think we're that scary.
Not yet.
So your name and business address, please.
My name is Ryan Arnadov, and I'm with Colebrook Design, and we're at 828 Davis Street in Evanston. And this is
I'm Ben Britson. I'm CEO of Nick's Organic Fast Food, and my residence is 926 Juniper Road, Glenview, Illinois.
Great, thank you. If you'll tell us about your project.
I will just really quickly. I emailed you a revised set of drawings, and I have a flash drive if you want. I do.
Did you make big changes? No, it's the color study. Hey, sorry.
It is the color studies and a bit of a revision of the elevations and the roof.
Okay. My guess is you're getting rid of the curve for budget reasons?
Aesthetics and budgets. And it's the Nick's folder, and it's dated with today's date and zoning meeting. So the project is located right on the corner of Crawford and Grosse Pointe Road, which at the moment is a vacant lot. It used to be a gas station, but it's been empty for almost a decade. And Nick's is the only fully organic certified fast food restaurant in the nation. And what we're proposing to do is to have a ground floor, which is approximately 1,800 square feet, which will have all of the back of house functions and the front house with a bit of seating. There is a basement which will serve for storage and back of house that is under 1,000 square feet. And then there is a small mezzanine on the upstairs, which will have just a little bit of seating and possibly an office for the owners.
Where are you going to put an office in that mezzanine plan?
We're going to have to lose a couple of seats here and there.
Okay.
So this is just to give you a quick view of where it's located.
Is it going to glow like that?
Yes, that's because it's new, right?
Can you orient me, please, on that drawing?
Absolutely. So right here is Grosse Pointe Road. Crawford turns and goes westish that way.
Okay.
Sarkey's is right next door. It's the only thing on that side of the corner. And right here is the site plan. So this is what we're proposing to do. You have pedestrian access both from the parking lots and as well as from Crawford. There are bicycle racks that we've placed on the Crawford side, which is closer to getting across the drive-through. Access in and out of the site is only from Grosse Pointe Road. And this was based on studies with the city, the traffic study. We're only asking for a right-in from Crawford in order to limit the amount of traffic going in and out at that intersection on the Crawford side. So essentially, you would have to do a loop to go in and back out, only on the Grosse Pointe Road side. That is probably the biggest challenge to the project, and it's difficult to work with, but I think there's a lot of significance to our client to make Evanston the first and special place where Nick's Organic comes up. We're also proposing a small green roof on top, which will be visible from the mezzanine, keeping in line with the notion of the organic food and vision of the clients. And there is a queue for 8 cars and 5 parking spaces, which is above the requirement for the small size of a restaurant for this area. And we feel that all of those provisions are adequate to allow for the traffic of people who will be using this facility during business hours.
So, sorry, can you go back to the... so there are 5 parking spaces?
Yes, 1 accessible and 4 regular.
And so how many people do you anticipate eating inside the restaurant at a time?
There is not a terrible amount of seating. I'm assuming that probably somewhere between 10 to 15, no more than 20 people between outside seating, inside seating, and the mezzanine at any given time.
So is it fair to conclude you expect and probably hope the majority of the business you're going to have at this location will be drive-through traffic?
Correct. That is the plan, and the traffic study that we had done in conjunction with our drawings for the other location for Nick's also suggested the majority of the people who will be going here will be using the drive-through. I want to say somewhere around 60% is currently at the...
It's between lunch and dinner, it's roughly around 60%. For breakfast, 6 a.m. to 10:30, it's almost 100%.
Is that similar for your Rolling Meadows location?
That's
That's
taken
the
from
numbers
Rolling
you're
Meadows.
getting them from. Okay.
And does that location, sorry for not knowing, does that location have a similar size lot, similar number of parking spaces, similar traffic pattern?
The Rolling Meadows location is just about 3,000 square feet, so it's much larger. And there's also more. There is additional we do have more parking in Rolling Meadows, but to cover the parking, if there is an overflow from our lot, I have been in communication with CVS and Sarkeys about using a little portion of their lot as well to take on that overage.
Thanks
Can I ask
for
you
anticipating my question.
Can I ask you a quick question about the Rolling Meadows location? It doesn't seem a hotbed of organic eating, having grown up out there. So I'm curious that you're doing well out there.
Well, we anticipated that. Well, first of without going into it, wasting a whole lot of time, but it was the first before we received our investment from the West Coast. It was the first drive-through that we saw that was reasonably built out in Rolling Meadows. So it also happened to be our partner's location. So we actually own that location now. So it just worked out that way. But everybody's responding very, very well to it. People in Schaumburg and Inverness and all the surrounding neighborhoods are coming there.
Huh.
It's been great.
All right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be expanding.
Clearly, but it boggles the mind.
Just to make sure I understand, the traffic flow represented by this diagram is a traffic flow that you've arrived at working with the city?
Well, no, this is what we're proposing, but we try to limit the amount of in and out of the site because there was a big concern from the neighborhood that it may be too congested to be going in and out of Crawford where the street narrows. So that is the reason that even though it would be probably easier for everyone to have who's inside to go in and out at Crawford, it may cause a bit of a backup going through the light. So the idea was that you can only pull in when you're on Crawford in from here, and as it's only an in and it's a very long parking lot, you're not going to back up into the street.
And so that's heading north on Crawford. You would
Correct.
turn to the right into the lot.
Yes, and no matter what, you have to come in and make a right. To make a right to get out of Grosse Pointe Road. That's the only way that you can go, also limiting not having to go left.
And you know that section of Crawford, that's 2-lane there, right? Yeah.
I have another orientation question. So at the top of this drawing, is that the alley that
Correct.
separates your property from the first residential property?
Yes, this is the public alley.
Okay, and that looks better on the drawing than I saw in person as
It
I
is.
drove through it today. And then based on this drawing, where is the ordering system and the speaker?
The speaker is right here where the menu board, and it's there's a wall here that's going to be separating Sarkeys and Nick's, and the menu board is right where the first card is by the window. And then you go around and you pick up your food on the other side over here.
And then if
I'm not seeing your pointer. I'm sorry. That's just me being colorblind. Can you?
So the menu board is
Yeah.
right there. and then you come out, and the pickup window is where the last car is on Crawford. And back out, and out, or this way, or whichever way.
So cars would drive through on the north side and come back around.
Yes, you have to loop the site and loop the whole restaurant. It is a bit unfavorable for a drive-through in a restaurant, but it's something that we're willing to work with in order to make it happen at this location, and Ben feels confident that it will work, and we feel confident as well.
Can you speak to the issue of leasing space for additional parking at Sarkeys? If I recall correctly, the DAPR report suggested that before you come before ZBA, you had such an off-site parking agreement in place. Is that agreement in place, or what is the?
I'm still working on it. CVS corporate seems to be a little slow in responding, so I'm just waiting for them to play catch up. I have, I've reached some sort of an agreement with Sarkeys, although nothing is in writing yet. I'm just waiting to hear back from CVS to know what the situation is between both of them. But I know that if it was up to Sarkeys, we'd be able to utilize their parking lot as well without incurring any overflow into any other lots. There's more than enough parking there between our hours and their hours. And their peak hours and our peak hours are completely different.
I'm a little confused and concerned about the traffic flow. If you could just walk me through. It looks like somebody who's turning right from Crawford
Yes.
would be making sort of that little U-shaped turn into
Yes.
the lot. But you've also got cars exiting from the window right at that same joint in the lot. Is that?
Yes.
So theoretically, if there are cars from Crawford coming in and there's a line of cars waiting to get into the drive-through, you can create an unresolvable logjam in your parking lot from cars exiting and entering at the same time.
That will be a very, very favorable condition for Nick with a lot of people there. I think that the lot is big enough to handle a relatively busy day where there's a huge queue around. I don't think it's ever going to happen where everyone is there at the same time, parking and leaving and entering and going in from the other side.
I'm less concerned about the logjam actually in the parking lot than a car that waits on Crawford to turn in while another car leaves and stays in traffic turning off of Crawford.
No, there's
potentially
only in on
sticking out.
Crawford. There's no out on Crawford. You mean
There's
Grosse
no
Pointe?
out, so no Crawford, a car wanting to turn in on Crawford.
Yes.
That's waiting for a car exiting the drive-through,
Okay. Following you.
stays sticking out on Crawford in traffic.
You have the entire span of the parkway and everything for a car to turn in. It will be completely out of Crawford.
You get at least, that whole parkway is at least deep enough for one car.
Easily.
So theoretically,
Okay.
a good driver would wait.
Maybe I'm
at-
being more ambitious about your business than you are.
A good driver would wait at the pickup window as he sees a car coming in, lets that car go past, and then follows behind.
If there's
And the
room
re-
for the car to move.
And we also,
Yes.
we did push it up.
But you'd have to have at least 4 more cars stacked up in front of the building. So he'd have to have 12 cars in line.
I think he will probably build another one if
You
that
ever
happens
try
on
to-
a regular basis.
You ever try to go in and out of that Starbucks on Dodge and Dempster?
Yeah.
It's like a similar kind of traffic pattern if you think about coming in off of Dempster
Yeah.
into that lot and the drive-through is on the other side by Dodge, on the Dodge side, and there are problems with that.
Luckily, the Starbucks is kitty corner.
I was going to say I've had that problem at Starbucks as well, right there.
And the reason it's so close is we actually were going the other way. We're pushing it away from the intersection as much as we could up so that we could open that part up, but they have to meet somewhere.
I think it's a tough site for parking, and I think you've made the best of it by moving the the ingress and egress as far away from the intersection as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And providing a place for so many cars to stack. I mean, you've got at least 7 cars stacked, and you can probably stack another 4 more across the front of the building.
Correct.
Which I don't think you'll ever have that many. What's the average stack in Rolling Meadows?
Just about this,
8, 7.
about-ish.
And that's during peak dinner or peak
And
lunch?
well, both. It's during both lunch and dinner.
And what happens during breakfast? Because you said breakfast was nobody comes in for breakfast. They all drive through.
Correct. It's all drive-through, and at this point, breakfast is a lot slower than our lunch and dinner hours.
Okay.
So we don't anticipate, that time being too busy.
Huge business? Okay. Because I think I saw that in Gewalt Hamilton's Exhibit 5.
Okay.
Is there somebody here who can talk about that? Because that's actually a question I have. It said that your walk-in was 1 person in the morning and 5 drive-throughs. Is that really true?
One walk-in in the morning,
Yeah.
it could have been a slow day. Could have been a really slow
Because
day.
if those are the numbers we're talking about, this is never going to be a problem.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we're not crushing it at breakfast hours. Or will our Rolling Meadows location be probably be our strongest location?
Yeah.
I think here we're being pretty ambitious.
Because it also made me worry about your viability.
Yeah.
And that if you're really getting 1 walk-in in the morning and 5 drive-throughs,
Right.
how are you staying in business? And how do we not end up with a 2-story empty building on the corner in 2 years?
Right.
So how do we not end up with an empty building on the corner in 2 years?
Well, like I said, it's Rolling Meadows. It's slightly of a not as busy location. We also are set back quite a bit.
Is this literally the second in the nation?
Well, outside of Organic Coop, they're the nation's first certified organic drive-thru in the world, actually, certified by QAI.
This whole Nick's organic fast food, this is the second location.
This is the second location in the world. Yep.
This is it. Okay.
I mean, we're working on a few more right now, but this is one that's important to me because I grew up in Evanston. So it's a lot that I've driven by many, many times when it was the Sitco there, and growing up as a Centennial and walking over and stuff. So it's kind of interesting that we're considering this. But regarding the traffic, this could possibly be over ambitious. I don't know if we'll hit this exactly. We'd like to strive for this, but I don't think.
What kind of business do you need to hit to be profitable?
Numbers or?
Yeah. I don't want your specifics, but are your yes. But is your proposal?
If we could do 1.2 out of here would be good, and I think that's perfectly attainable.
And where do you think that falls in the range of how much drive-through traffic you'll have and sit-down customers? Is that well within the application?
We were hoping because of how small this lot is, we were gearing this more towards a drive-through operation.
Okay.
Just accessibility, convenience. If people ride their bike or there's parking spots there. Me personally, if I couldn't find a parking spot in the location I was going, I'd go to the drive-through. And if we're talking about parking and that sort of a thing, and traffic, I would say probably about 70%, probably maybe slightly more than Rolling Meadows because there is a lot more seating in our location, Rolling Meadows.
Right.
I'm hoping that we have a lot more drive-through.
So here's an ancillary question, which is if you expect most of your business to be drive-through, why a second floor?
To make it look cool.
Okay.
No, we wanted a double-decker.
Give your architect a lot of range here.
Right, and also because it gives way just for a little bit more seating. A second level, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit more grand. We can spend a little bit more on our second location, so we wanted it to be a second story. And this is the model that we're going to be using for the majority of our builds. They're not going to be big locations. Rolling Meadows will probably be our biggest drive-through.
So the model moving forward is the smaller model.
Correct. It's going to we don't want them to be big and huge like Culver's and that sort of thing. We want to just small, quaint.
Okay.
Sorry. So I see there's a litter container in the top.
Yes.
Well, is that designed for cars to be throwing litter into, or is that designed for you to take out your litter? Is it a dumpster?
It's a dumpster for the restaurant, and the one side is open on the drive-through for the people who work there, and then the trucks from the alley. Which is why we're kind of forced to keep it in that corner where everything's as close as it can be to level, so it dives down.
And are you familiar with the city's litter collection plan?
Not yet, not me.
We will be.
Yes.
You will be.
Of course.
Okay.
You mentioned in your documents that you were going to do some improvements to the alley, but didn't elucidate on what those were. Can you? Will you?
We'd like to pave it and make it nice. We'll take on pretty much the responsibility for that alley, especially if we're able. What I was discussing with Sarkis is that we'd also help her with that parking lot as well, or CVS. We're trying to work something out where it can be good for the city, good for everybody, good for us.
Okay.
And pave possibly even the lot. Along
Sarkis lot.
Maybe.
Okay.
If that's where our customers are also going to be parking, we'd like it to be nice. So we're willing to do anything to make it work for everybody.
Have you talked to the neighbors about that? About paving the alley?
I'm not sure if we discussed it at the last meeting, but I believe we did.
Okay.
It would be nice if it was.
So the former use was a gas station. Is this site clean and ready to build on?
It is, yes.
So there's no environmental issues?
No, there was a
All the
report.
tanks
I
have
don't
been
have it. Yeah,
removed?
the
It's all
tanks
been
have been
done?
removed and it's ready.
And what are your expected hours of operation?
We'll be 6 a.m. to roughly around 8 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then 9 p.m. Friday, Saturday. So not too late, not a 24-hour operation.
Would you mind going to the next slide? I'd love to see the new colors of the elevation.
Yes. Okay, just a brief, here's if you want the plans, slightly reduced mezzanine in progress.
Okay.
But keeps getting smaller. And these are the 2D elevations, and now we have a little bit of a rendering as well. So
Oh, you've got a 3D now?
we do.
Have you whitewashed Sarkey's mural?
No, it just ran out of time.
I'm working with her. You know, I've been going to Sarkey's for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to damage their business in any way either. So we'll try and make it.
It's a neighborhood institution.
It is. It's an institution. We'll try and do what we can to make sure everybody's happy.
There's the environmentally car.
That's right.
Very green.
It's the next green. And we recycle.
All right. Any other questions from us?
I guess just to make sure we get it all, it's a special use and all. Can you tell us about what deliveries will be made to the site and when?
Sure.
How the food is prepared and where?
Oh, well, food is most definitely prepared on site, fresh to order. So wait time's a little bit longer than your typical fast food restaurant. So sort of a hybrid fast food model, if you will. But regarding deliveries, they'll be made in that alley. Our current deliveries are Tuesdays and Thursdays, which they'll probably
Can you go back to the plan of the alley? So how's the food getting in? It's going, I didn't see access from the alley.
So we're anticipating that you can come in from Crawford, and because this is the most level area, they'll stop here and then hand deliver it to the restaurant and then drive
What,
out.
down the sidewalk? Okay.
It dips really fast, the alley, and there's a
Okay.
big grade change.
Right.
So they're going to have to come in through here, and then the trucks can drive out through the lot and back onto Grosse Pointe Road or whichever way.
Right.
But they will be entirely in the outside of the street.
I thought you said you were going to take deliveries where the condiments were, though, the condiment area.
No.
Or was that paper products?
I don't.
So there's.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
where that's from.
All right. So you're going down the alley, you're going to the walkway, you're going back up to the door. Okay. And how long do those deliveries last?
They're pretty quick, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
What times during the
Yeah.
day?
They are usually, they're not super early. Nobody has to worry about early deliveries. Usually between 7 a.m. and 10, around there. It's usually during breakfast because we're busy during lunch and dinner. We want to get all of our product in.
Right.
Breakfast is usually slower, so they're between those hours.
Right.
But we're, again, willing to, whatever,
And how wide's that alley? Is it enough for two-way traffic with a semi in it?
probably not.
No.
Okay. So you're blocking the alley for 15 minutes.
Correct. And we were contemplating vacating the alley, but I don't think that's
Right. That's a
something
no-go.
we're going to pursue.
Okay.
And what type of trucks are making those deliveries?
They're sort of like half semis, and then the one purveyor that we have is a full heavy-duty semi. However, having said that, we're also expanding into the city as well. And once we reach 4 or 5 pins in the map, we're going to open up a commissary where we'll be delivering, Nick's
Right.
will-
You take the big deliveries there and then
Correct.
send it out in
Right.
little trucks.
Exactly. Little Nick's trucks everywhere, and we'll be delivering there, which will be just a transit connect, basically.
So help me understand how a full semi truck is going to be making deliveries from that alley.
They will have to back in.
They can't back in though.
No, I think we're proposing that they drive all the way through and out through the Sarkey's lot.
You would take
Go
a
back in.
semi turn right into that alley. They would do their deliveries and then continue to drive through the Sarkey's lot, a semi truck through the Sarkey's lot and out onto Grosse Pointe Road.
Yes.
That
That's
seems really disruptive to a lot of people.
Can they make that turn from Sarkey's onto Grosse Pointe?
Actually,
I'm wondering if they can make the turn from Crawford onto the alley.
That alley is very tight.
it is.
Right. Well, also, our purveyors are large purveyors as well. So if they deliver to restaurants that can't accept semis, they find ways because they want to make money too.
Right.
So they'll probably
Okay.
put in a semi. We also pick up a lot of our stuff as well until we get to that commissary. It's been very difficult sourcing for our organic concept, so we're
Right.
still actually hand picking up a lot of our product to bring back from different farms and different places. So if it works out that we can accommodate a semi, then I'll
Yeah.
just talk to the purveyor and figure out what other means of transportation they can bring. But at that point, currently, that's kind of the best.
So just
scenario.
getting back to the,
I said I'm feeling a condition.
yeah, so just getting back to the timing of deliveries, how many, you said Tuesdays and Thursdays?
It's Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm not sure if there was ever, I don't know if it was mentioned that there's different times or.
But it's just twice a week?
It's only twice a week for now. Until we develop our commissary, it'll probably be more frequently, but with a smaller vehicle.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, during these deliveries, are these refrigerated trucks or trucks that would be idling in the alleyway during the 15 or 20 minutes while they're making deliveries?
Yes. Yeah, two of them are refrigerated, so I'm assuming they'd have to stay running.
How many employees will be on site?
No more than 6.
And do you expect your employees to drive?
To be honest, they're not hired. I'm not sure yet. If
Let's imagine all 6 employees are drivers. Where are they going to park?
then they will definitely not be parking on the lot. They'd be finding other spaces. So,
So will you be able to secure 6 parking spaces for your employee, for up to 6 employees?
I'm pretty sure that I can secure more than that.
Okay. Because what we wouldn't want is to have them using, if you heard the last case, using neighborhood parking.
Absolutely.
And taking away street parking from the neighborhood.
Right. No, I'm working diligently trying to make sure that the Sarkees thing works out. I know it will. I just don't know in which way. If it's going to be CVS working with me or Sarkees working with them, but we're all communicating.
Trying to find that spot.
Sorry, I'll ask the next question while
Yeah.
Mary Beth is searching for hers. So you pointed out the speaker for the drive-through. Are you aware of the letter that was submitted with concern about the noise that might come out of the speaker and how it may be disruptive? And what plans do you have specifically to ensure that that isn't the case, if any?
We have not seen the letter, no, but the speaker system is evolving all the time, and I think we can easily argue that the menu board is going to focus speaking to a person in an automobile, and it's also facing the blind wall of Sarkees as well as a fence that's put up. It's not facing any of the open directions on the side, so I don't think the noise will be an issue. It has to go through the car with a very directed sound into a blank wall behind.
Can you speak to lighting on the site and whether there would likely be, carryover light pollution from this property to the adjacent residential properties?
No, we actually submitted a photometrics plan, and we're keeping everything at 0 on all 4 sides. We just have bollards with shields because the parking lot is so close to the property line, so we're not going to have anything past that.
So what does your parking lot lighting look like? Are you using like the dark sky technology where all the light is coming down?
It's going to be shining down. Yeah, there's no big poles for the lighting. It's just bollards over here on the Grosse Pointe and Crawford corners, and then there will be some lighting where the Sarkees shared line is to lead you.
All bollards everywhere?
Yes. Minus whatever, we'll have a little bit of up and down
Building,
lighting on the
sure,
building, but
sure,
that's
sure.
a little bit more set in. As far as the property line goes, we're keeping everything very low.
And what happens to that lighting at night?
How do you mean?
Meaning it's midnight. What happens to the lights on the building?
Oh, they'll be on timers. Right when we close, the lights go
Okay.
off.
So the entire building goes into shadow, or you leave some lights on, or?
Whatever you'd like. I would like the building lit 24/7 if I could, but according to whatever
Right.
it needs to be. We obviously don't want to disrupt any neighbors.
Right, that's what
Our-
I'm thinking of, is it would just be nice to dim it at night so that it's not an eyesore for the neighbors nearby, you know, so
Right.
they don't see like Wrigley Field, right? You don't want anything like
Well,
that.
at 12,
I will just caution that I don't know if we should be concerned or if you are concerned and have thought about it, but having a building that shields a drive-through that's on an alley creates a dark space late at night where people could theoretically be, and I don't know if you want to have that lit in some way that discourages
There are
that.
lights on the all four sides of the building. They're just about 8-9 feet high and down lights.
Will remain lit.
I imagine that if the safety is an issue, they can certainly be at least dimmed to a reasonable level, and they'll be on the 3 sides of the drive-through.
that's what we have in Rolling Meadows, is all of our security door lights on the exterior are always lit. And then around the side where our drive-through is, we have 3 lights that are continuously lit at night. The only signage that goes dark at night is our menu boards and, you know, interior lighting and, you know, any lighting that's really on the building for aesthetics.
Okay, as the non-architect, one of the non-architects on the board, what is the fenestration? And help me understand that, please.
So we're looking at as much window wall as we can get on the front between the mezzanine and the ground floor. We have essentially, we're hoping a glazed storefront system that's going to limit the amount of mullions you have to make it as open as possible. And there's also this, let's call it a double height glass right here at the entrance.
So what height is that first line of green? First overhang?
Oh, the canopy, the bottom of it is at like 11 and change, let's say 12 feet to the bottom of the
So then
canopy.
how are you not complying with this?
That was
with
the
upper-
earlier elevations from the first round.
Right, so you're not- so it's not a
we've revised
variance
this one,
issue.
now we're taller
Yeah.
than 10 feet.
Yeah, because the butt glaze is really nice. It's much nicer now. I will give you that. It's
Yes.
more expensive, but much nicer.
Nice is good, yes.
Expensive is good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we no longer need that variance.
No, it's just the 65% on Crawford side, I believe,
Yes.
for the glaze, because there's just no way to have that many windows at the drive-through side and the little.
Right, but you do have that 2-story height window going through the eating area.
Correct, yeah, this is like a big vertical window, both sides.
Right. I can't believe we haven't seen a menu. What are you guys making? in
We can
there?
submit one. It's here. Do you want me to explain?
No.
So everybody can know.
What would be nice is to know what smells are coming out of the building.
Fabulous smells.
Delicious smells, yes.
Organic, certified organic fast food smells.
Are they French fry smells? Are they burger smells?
They are.
they-
We're classic fast food fare, but
Okay.
it's the only difference is we're just serving it without all the junk, all the chemicals, all the stuff that makes you feel lethargic and nasty after eating every. We're the real deal. It's real food. There's no reason why fast food can't be certified organic. There's no reason why organic food can't be fast food.
Okay.
So that's what we did. But yes, French fry smells.
And the other issue at hand is this whole thing of the.
I'll ask then, where's the vent?
Oh, the black iron going up.
It's on the flat spot.
Yeah, it's
in
on
the back.
the flat in the back.
Yeah, so the kitchen everything is back of house. This is the hood's going to be here. And this is all serving, and this is where people order and pick up food. So this is all, the drive-throughs over here. Everything is back here, bathrooms. So it's on the back portion of the building.
By facing the alley, essentially.
Yeah.
So the other issue at hand is the 30-foot pedestrian area. So you want to talk about that and how and why you are either addressing it or not addressing it?
There's really no way to make this fit any other way on the site, to have a drive-through and to have a restaurant on this type of a condition. So everything is pretty much forced where it is. And we're hoping that with some sensitive landscaping and native species, we can at least address some of the property side of the whatever's left of the lot.
I'll help rescue you a little bit, which is to say that that staff concluded that the 30-foot pedestrian area is not necessarily in the character of this particular street or required for this particular street with such heavy traffic. And therefore, it may not, my interpretation of that then is that therefore it may not be as big an impingement variation as it otherwise might be if this were, same request were being made in a different but similarly zoned area.
That is correct. To comply with the 30-foot pedestrian area, that would require that there is hardscaped areas starting at the curb of both streets and then going in basically into the parking lot and the drive-through area. And staff feels that it is not necessary, nor is it safe to have hardscaped areas of that much that would encourage pedestrians that close to such busy streets.
All right. Are there any questions any more questions from the board? No. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
No.
Okay. Why don't you guys have a seat? I think we've got some neighbors who'd like to ask some questions and make some comments. Thanks. All right. Any public comment? Come on up. Start with giving us your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Joshua Huppert, and my address is 2630 Crawford. I also have a little drive. Can I? Some pictures on it.
Hey, what do we do about that with exhibits?
We'll save them before you leave.
Okay. We're going to call those neighbors exhibit 1 through whatever.
I hope it worked. I never did one of these before. I had to call my son and ask him how to work it. So. Oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay.
Well done.
Oh, no. Are
At
they
the
all
bottom, there are 2 right next to the X. Yep, just rotate. Perfect.
Okay. So I did submit a letter to, I live pretty much across the street from this at 2630 Crawford, and we've lived there for 30 years. My biggest concern is parking, although after looking through the packet, I do have a few other concerns. But according to the packet, the busiest time at their existing business is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And having lived there for 30 years, I can tell you that's also the peak hours for Sarkis. And Sarkis does not have adequate parking. The lot that they lease from CVS is not, it's full during those hours usually, and they're parking in the residential lot. Their customers are parking in the residential lot and in the alley. So I don't know, there's a bunch of pictures. How do I get to the next one? Anybody?
Go back to the bottom on the folder,
okay.
the folder icon on the bottom left.
And just left of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that'll take you back to your list of files.
Oh, but he could just use the
Can
arrow
I-
button.
Can I?
They're not all open.
Oh,
Yeah, but it should still go. See?
oh yeah.
Okay, oh, I know.
That's the view from my front yard right there. And what you're seeing is the residential lot at 2635 Crawford. I took all of these last Friday between 11:20 a.m. and noon.
So you're saying that this is directly sort of northwest of that alley? And that's where the illegal parking is happening?
Exactly. It's in
Is
the
there
lot
parking
and in the
that
alley.
lot? Okay.
And in the alley. So yeah, that's the lot across the alley. And, you know, anyway, that's that white car is clearly in the alley. The 2 black cars on the left, it's hard to say if they're partly in the alley or partly in the residential lot. Okay. Well, at least it kind of worked. Here is a view of that lot at that time, and it's full. The lot that Sarkis leases from CVS apparently is full. The only time, if you see one spot, somebody just pulled out and somebody else is about to pull in. So I guess you'll have these pictures if you want to see them later or something.
Yep.
The bottom line is, between 11 and 1, Sarkis already doesn't have enough parking. And there's a little bit of background. I don't know, most of you guys haven't been here since the last time I was here. A few years back, the developer who did own the lot where this proposal is had the idea to build a big Chase Bank that would have included the alley. They would have gotten the alley from the city and the next 2 residential lots. And a lot of us were against that because I'm right across the street. I'm the last house in the residential zone. Then there's the alley next to me, which is the same alley that crosses there. And then there's a business. And, you know, it's a drag living next door to a business, but what they wanted to do was expand and start going into the residential area, and we really didn't want that. So there was some back and forth, and in the end, the city council said, well, Chase Bank could build a drive-through on the one lot that we're talking about today. But there were drive-through banks that size, and so actually the city council removed the prohibition on drive-through just for that one lot. The whole rest of the Central Street overlay district, you can't have a drive-through, but that one lot, now you're allowed to, which I think is illegal to zone 1 property like that. So now, because they were thinking about a bank and trying to make a deal with Chase, that prohibition is removed. Now these guys are coming around and asking for, I think, a bunch of variations, a bunch of special uses. So what I'm worried about is, first of all, they don't seem like they really have their plan figured out yet. They don't have a lease for parking. But if they were able to get a lease, if the applicant's able to get a lease and use some of Sarkis spaces, that means that many more of Sarkis customers who will be looking for a place to park. And there's no parking on Grosse Pointe, very limited parking on Crawford, and no sidewalk on that side of the street. There's probably a few places on the residential street, Park Place. Their employees might walk a couple blocks and park on Hillside.
Can I ask a question? Would you happen to think about the development that's on the southeast corner with the Subway and the cleaners and the Starbucks?
You know, as
Because that has a drive-through, it has limited parking. And so what we have found is that parking expands to fit, right? If there's no parking, you just don't go there as a customer. So you're never looking for parking in those locations. So I'm curious how you feel about that particular development.
It's far enough from my house that I didn't comment when it was proposed, even though I got a letter. I walk by it and I drive by it, and I think it's a mess. There are cars often backed up into the street. Sometimes I try to drive down Central Street, and cars are waiting, trying to turn in and blocking Central. And I don't like seeing people pulling out into the street with a coffee in one hand and the phone in the other. Let me, if you don't mind, I meant to say a few things.
Sure.
Contrary to what the architect said, I looked in the packet. It says they're going to have 35 indoor seats, and they said minimal outdoor seating. So I'm not sure what minimal, but that's roughly 40 seats. So if there's one car per 2 customers, that's 20 cars plus the employees, and they got 4 spaces other than ADA. So where are they going to park? I mean, and one of the possibilities that I see, which I think you mentioned, if people see a mess, they don't go there, then the place goes broke. So then in a couple years, we've got a building that's gotten all these variances, and it's an existing drive-through fast food place, and we start seeing other people saying, hey, what can we do? And, you can't tell me I can't have a fast food here because you told somebody else they could. So that's a concern. Another really big concern, which I mentioned in the letter, is it seems like it's kind of a slippery slope. What's going to happen is there's going to be a huge lack of parking, and the Sarkis and or Nick's going to come back here and say, well, our customers can't park. We need to be able to park in the residential lot. And then the business, one way or another, starts encroaching into the residential lot. So let me hit a couple of points, if you don't mind. They mentioned in the packet at page 77 that the nearest house is 100 feet away. I'm not sure if that's exactly accurate, but that's because there's a vacant lot, and the owner of the vacant residential lot has been holding out for a high price because he wants to rezone it. So he bought the lot years ago with a house on it and demolished the house and started trying to get into a business development, asking much more money than what it had been worth with the house. So, you know, I don't think it's fair to assume that there's not going to be a house there. There should be a house there. But if you've got these semi-trucks coming in blocking the alley and you've got a speaker there on the idea that there's no house there, it's going to make it even less likely that anybody's going to put a house there. I think, because I noticed you guys go by standards, and maybe I should address the standards a little bit.
Let me just quickly, I think you've made some really good points. So as this board, we're not parking enforcement, so we can't deal with illegal parking. But what we can do, to the extent we believe the standards are met, is condition the approval of the special use requested on conditions that would affect the employee parking, certainly, and that would prohibit employees from using residential parking. We can impose conditions that control how the trucks use the alley, how and when the trucks use the alley. But if you have a illegal parking situation, you know, there's a parking division of the city that you can call and try to get them to deal with what you believe is illegal parking.
Have called. They don't deal with parking in a private lot. I did speak to Melissa Klotz about this recently, and she said it would take months to enforce anything, but they can try. I also know from personal experience that the police and the parking services are very reluctant to do anything when it's around a business. And I'll just give you an example. I don't know if you ever go by Green Bay in Livingston. There's a body shop. You can go by any day, and there's many smashed up cars on the parkway. And there's never a ticket. I went by there yesterday. They were towing cars. The police were towing cars off the street because of street cleaning and completely ignoring the cars on the parkway. So I know that, you know, trying to get the police to do anything when there's a business involved is very difficult. Maybe zoning can do something about the residential lot. But if this place goes in, it's just going to make the problem much worse. And even if you say that none of their customers and none of their employees can park illegally or on the street, that just means that all of Sarka's customers are going to be parking illegally and on the street. So,
well, parking on the street is not per se illegal.
No,
right?
Okay.
So,
illegally or on the street, maybe I should say. You know, I'm not concerned. Yeah, two different things.
But it is an economic problem, right? So there's a number. It's an economic utilization problem. There's a limited number of parking spaces, and to the point that's been discussed, people either will decide that it's economically rational to wait or fight for a parking space, or they'll go somewhere else where they can park. So there's not unlimited overflow for parking. People, if customers don't have a space to park, they're going to go somewhere else.
Well, maybe I should click through a couple more of these, and you can see what they do.
I think one of the other things you mentioned was what happens if they happen to go out of business and somebody else wants to come in. I think I'd like to have Melissa address that issue, because it's not that easy. They've got to come back here.
If a future restaurant were to locate at this property, it would require, at the minimum, a substitution of special use, which is an administrative process that is determined by the zoning administrator. It does include a public notice that goes out to all property owners within 500 feet, and it includes the ability to add conditions or change conditions that would be in this current special use permit. So there is a process for it, and we do have the ability to deny it or modify it if necessary. Or if a new potential restaurant came in that was substantially different, then it may not be appropriate for a substitution of special use. And in that case, it would start over with a new process just like this, which would, again, come to the Zoning Board of Appeals and then City Council.
Melissa, how do you define substantially different? If a McDonald's wanted to come in here, for example, is that a substantially different use that would require that process?
It would ultimately depend on their details. Typically, we would go with that is a type 2 restaurant, which is also what Nick's is requesting, therefore it could do the substitution. But if there were some details that the zoning administrator were to determine are substantially different, for instance, if it were open 24 hours, that may be enough of a difference that we would instead go through the zoning board and city council.
You know, we had the same discussion last time about the bank. That is, some of the aldermen were saying, and I think some of the ZBA members, yeah, we're removing the prohibition on a drive-through. We're talking about a bank project. They couldn't automatically, you know, people were asking, well, what if McDonald's wants to go in there? Oh, they can't just take over that, automatically get a drive-through. But it has made it more likely. Removing that prohibition has encouraged us to get to this point.
If I may ask, so this is a commercial site, so while it's right abutting a residential neighborhood, this is a commercial site. So is the biggest issue the drive-through?
I think the biggest issue, honestly, is that the project that they want to put in there is too big for the size of the lot. And, I mean, they pretty much said that up here. If you're going to have 40 seats and 4 parking places, and you know, and then discussing the exits and entrances, I think the architect, and they referred a few times to the size of the lot. You know, it's zone B1A. It's in the Central Street Overlay District, zone B1A, which is supposed to be for neighborhood-oriented, pedestrian-friendly kind of stores. So they're putting so much building and so much drive-through there. It's just, it would be great on a bigger lot, you know.
I would just like to clarify that they're meeting their parking requirements.
I understand that.
They're meeting their parking requirements, so they're not asking for a variance on parking.
I understand that, but they are asking for a bunch of special uses and a bunch of variances.
You could view the 40 seats in view of the parking that's on site as being a neighborhood destination.
You could.
Well,
you could.
I imagine kids of all ages biking there to go get a milkshake and fries, because you can't get that over there. Nobody's going to Hot Dog Island because they're going to get killed at getting across the road.
You think it's safer to cross Crawford and Grosse Pointe?
I think there's a triangle of houses there where it's an easy trek to get there.
Which triangle are you talking about?
The triangle they're on, right? Between Crawford and Old Glenview and Grosse Pointe, right? There's that triangle. There's that triangle of houses there.
The only people who can get there without crossing either Crawford or Grosse Pointe is basically the residents on Park Place, that block of Park Place that's behind
and all
this.
of Crawford.
Well, there's no sidewalk on that side of Crawford, so they have to take the sidewalk on my side of Crawford and then cross Crawford. So I don't remember how old my kids had to be before they were allowed to cross Crawford, but it was pretty old.
I see teenagers, but that's okay.
Yeah.
If we would love for you to wrap up your comments,
okay, great,
please, if
great.
you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so I know that you go by standards, and I noticed one of them is about a particular peculiarity or something like that of the lot. There has to be something peculiar about the lot, and there's nothing peculiar about this lot. It's a very square, normal corner lot. It's just not as big as what they would like to have, so they don't meet that standard. Another standard is that it does not diminish the value of nearby property. And their answer to that was it increases the value of this lot because it's vacant. But I don't think the question was about their lot. It's about nearby property. And obviously, having a drive-through fast food restaurant is not good for the value of nearby residential property. That's probably why it's not generally allowed in this overlay district. If I look at, sorry, I have to look at the other standards. I also, it says something about a negative, there shouldn't be a negative cumulative effect. And between Sarkis and Hot Dog Island and Starbucks, but maybe between Sarkis and this, you've got two restaurants that neither one has anywhere near enough parking, so that is a negative cumulative effect. And then they said that this design was made for this lot and wouldn't work at any other location. But I was at the DAPR meeting last week, and the Mr. Britson, I believe, said that they plan to open 500 businesses in the next 2 or 3 years. And so it's hard to believe that this is a really unique design that's not going anywhere else. If they're going to open 500 businesses, they need to come up with a design that they can use over and over. So I really don't think they meet the standards. I also don't think that they're ready. I don't think they should even have been here because they don't have a lease. I also noticed in the packet they're supposed to have information about the corporation that owns the property, the shareholders. None of that is in there. There's no proof of ownership. They just basically aren't ready.
I unfortunately, I do need you to wrap up because
Sure.
this has been quite a long time. So we appreciate all of your input and your concerns. We just have other people, and so we do need to get to them as well. So thank you very much. Yep. Anyone else? I encourage you to be much shorter, please. We're gonna start putting time limits. You got 5 minutes.
I don't think I'll need one. But,
fantastic. Thanks so much. Name and address, please.
My name is Megan Lutz, and I live at 2637 Crawford Avenue, which is on the same side of this Crawford as this. It's in the second adjacent residential property. It's the house that's listed as the closest residence since our neighbor's house was torn down, so we're about 100 feet away. And I'm the one who sent the letter about asking for conditions about noise not going off the lot. So, I mean, I realize we're pretty far away and they're going to put up a fence, but our house is 2 stories and our bedroom's on that side of the house. And I feel like they are asking for a lot. And so I would like to have some kind of enforceable condition attached to their drive-through permit so that, they are held to not having any noise come off the property from the speakers from the drive-through. And there is a precedence for that. There are, I found ordinances like there was a Walgreens that went in 1997 at Dodge in Maine that was a rezoning from a residential property, and there were conditions that said they wouldn't serve customers if they were blaring music from their car, and also the volume had to be at normal speaking volume for any speakers on that property. So I would like to see something like that added to this, just because not just protection for us, but protection for potential neighbors who may only be across a 16-foot alley in the future on that residential property. That was kind of my main concern before coming here, but I read through the packet and it seems like things that are in the packet have been changing and have gotten a little bit loosey-goosey, and I do appreciate your questions that you're asking about traffic flow, parking, and business viability. I think one of the reasons why we really need to look at this drive-through special use is because as Josh stated, this is the only property, one address is listed that's been changed by ordinance in the Central Street Master Plan that was adopted in the late 2000s. And you had asked about the Starbucks. The Starbucks went in place. I'm also a board member of Central Street Neighbors Association, which is the group that was instrumental in implementing the Central Street Master Plan and getting it adopted by the City Council. The reason why drive-throughs were removed from the master plan is because of that Starbucks. It's because in the morning you say people go elsewhere. If Go there for coffee on a weekday morning, and you'll see what it does to the traffic all around that intersection. It's a constant topic of discussion on the Hillside Neighbors message board, on people who live in the neighborhood, who live south on Crawford, who live east on Central, who live in that whole area. It really messes up the traffic because cars are turning in, cars are turning out, cars are blocking the street traffic as they're trying to get in and out, and it's that way every day. So people don't avoid a business just because it's going to be a little inconvenient. It's more, if you build it, they will come, and they're coming, and they still come because they don't want to get out of their cars. So they're getting Starbucks there. So I think that's why we need to look a lot more closely at this drive-through. And then just a couple other things that sort of came up in this. If they are leasing spaces from Sarkis, where are those spaces? Because in the packet, it says those spaces are going to be to the east of Sarkis, and to the east of Sarkis is Grosse Pointe Road. So do they mean west? Do they mean north? Because east of the lot is Grosse Pointe, west of it is the alley and the residential lot, and north of it is the lot that Sarkis leases from CVS. So I think we need to know where those spaces are. So there's a lot of clarification that needs to be done. I have a question about the alley improvement. It's a city alley. Is a private party allowed to pave a city alley?
Well, the whole neighborhood can get together and all agree to get a 50% to pay for the paving of an alley. So my guess is if they wanted to, they would pay for some component of the alley. That happened with Northwestern when they needed to take over when they were negotiating with their neighbors. And so they offered to pay for a portion of that alley paving. Okay. So yes, it happens routinely that you can get together with all of your neighbors and agree, yep, we're going to pay for this. And then you get a paved alley. You pay for it.
Okay. All right. Well, that'd be good. If you guys want to get us a paved alley, we'd love that. Because I can tell you, it's really steep.
Yeah.
I urge you guys to go by there and look at it. It's really steep. So in the winter, cars get stuck in there trying to get out onto Crawford and are like, trying to get up out of there. It's in really bad shape. So paved alley would be good as long as there's no quid pro quo that it's their alley or they're going to get a vacation for it, for the city vacating that alley in exchange for paving it, or that it's going to cross into the residential property. So that's kind of where the battle lines are for us and for a lot of the neighborhood is nothing goes across the alley, nothing goes into residential.
And that's 5 minutes.
Okay. Let me just do two other things, okay? So the packet says they're going to be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Today they said 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So what's involved in getting hours changed for business? Can they say this is their hours now and then say later they're going to be open till 11?
So the answer is no. We set the hours. We set an opening time and a closing time.
Okay.
And
we set a maximum range of hours.
Yes. Okay. And they can operate anytime within those hours.
Okay. Yeah. Because, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., so I'm like, okay, that seems okay, but I just don't want it to now things are shifting, so. And then the deliveries in the alley, the packet does say that most of the deliveries are going to be happening near their,
the dumpster. Their trash.
Well, I think it's near the stairs to their condiment room or something like that, which is on the front side of the building on the Grosse Pointe side. So now there's going to be semis in the alley. I can tell you there's no way a semi is going to be able to make that turn into that alley from Crawford. It's not going to happen. So I think there has to be a plan for deliveries.
And
okay,
we're wrapping up.
So conditions I would like to see, and how do we get them, is on speaker noise, truck deliveries, timing and location, and also parking, no employee parking on residential streets. They have to secure some other kind of off-site parking to offset either where their employees are going to be or customers. And we are going to be trying to work with the city to enforce people not parking illegally on the residential lot that's there now that we know what the process is.
I would encourage you to get your alderman involved.
Yes, he's here. So where did he go?
Fabulous.
Somewhere. There he is, yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Again, if you're going to say the same thing, we encourage you to say, I agree with that person, and we will take that at its value.
Okay, hi, my name is Carolyn Brzezinski. I think I'm the first neighbor talking from the
Oh, I need
east
your
side.
address.
Oh, 3307 Central Street.
Thank you.
And so I do agree with some of the comments that were already said, but I'd like to add a couple more things. First of all, I really support an organic restaurant opportunity, so kudos for that. But I do think there's a lot of irony that it's a drive-through organic. So you're driving to be healthy, and there's something kind of weird about that. Not enough landscape. There's a huge parkway, and I didn't say anything about the landscaping. And my really big complaint about the whole intersection there, I've lived there now about 6 years, and the whole intersection really lacks landscaping. It's predominantly the lack is at the CVS lot, of course. I don't know why, when they put in their new signage, they never were required to have landscaping around the base of that sign, but they should be hiding their parking. And if there's an agreement made with CVS for this facility to have parking, that if that could be a component, that CVS would then have to screen their parking, because I don't know how else we're going to get screened parking there, but it's an eyesore. I like CVS, but I really think it's an eyesore. Deliveries, as people have mentioned, are a problem. I just wanted to point out that my observation of people delivering for Subway and Starbucks, the delivery trucks, they don't fool around with trying to turn. They pull in as quick and easy as they can, especially these big semi-tractor trailer trucks. They will just pull in wherever they can, or on Central Street, they just stop on Central Street. They leave their big trucks idling for as long as it takes, could be 20 minutes. Same thing happens in CVS parking lot, but they're in the lot, but still they idle their trucks for 20 minutes. We do call the police come, it works for about 2 months, and then they're back to the same old thing. So it's very hard to get enforcement, so I don't know how they could handle that any better. There is a potential for negative cumulative effect. Starbucks, Subway, Hot Dog Island, Sarkeys, a lot of food-related businesses that need a lot of deliveries, and that's just a very big hardship on the neighbors. Let's see, just going through my thoughts here. Basically, those are my comments. I think any additional help towards so much pavement to be an impervious type of or a pervious type of pavement would be appreciated. It just looks like a lot of pavement on the already needing landscaping environment there. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Come on up. Give us your name and address, please, and try and limit yourself to 5 minutes, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. We get crankier as the night goes on.
I'm starting officially at 9:25.
Sorry?
9:25.
Fantastic. And 32 seconds.
My name is Ben Hamliff, not the seconds. Mine doesn't do it. My name is Ben Hamliff. I live 2 blocks from the Sarkeys and the new Knicks. I've been there 17 years. So that took... I'm still on the same first minute. I'll try and stay inside.
Well done.
Thank you. Since I'll be last in this, I want to just mention a few things. One, I am encouraged that Nix has tried very hard to work on the confinement of the lot itself, in which they're in, which is the old gas station lot. We went through quite a battle several years back when Chase Bank started out big and very ambitiously with 3 lots, and it took years and a lot of efforts before they finally scaled back to now, or at the time, to that gas station lot where now Nix is proposing. I'm just glad that they started within the confinement of the space that's actually there, instead of first trying to outgrow and then come back. It's probably saved a couple of years of everyone's time. I have 4 minutes left.
Fantastic.
I would encourage Nick's to review how Sarkis takes their deliveries. I can say from experience that Sarkis is usually has very limited business in the early morning hours. There's simply none of the students, college or high school students, that are awake in the early mornings between 7 and 10 or 7 and 11. But they do start coming into the business around 10 or 11. And if Sarkis is getting deliveries in some manner, and I can't say right now how they're getting them, but if there aren't any customers in Sarkis' spot, you've been talking all evening about parking for employees and for customers and residents, but if you just were to review how Sarkis is taking their deliveries, that might be a separate issue that you could address with Sarkis, and perhaps by seeing how they do it, learn it onto your business. I would encourage that discussion aside from the parking. I also think that I can only do this if I'm allowed to look at my clock. I have 3 minutes left. I would also encourage the committee to consider that there are a number of other food businesses in that Six Corner district, as I call it, that operate with very limited direct parking spaces for their businesses. So while I do think that there are legitimate issues that mean that there is a limitation for everyone's, I would also encourage the committee to consider that if it does end up going forward to City Council with conditions, that they be balanced with a view of what are the other businesses required to live within in that area right now, so that the bar be set neither higher nor lower for this new business. And I do recognize what Bernd was saying, which is that they are meeting zoning requirements in the area. As far as noise is concerned, I think that is something that should be a given, that both the committee and the business be encouraged to work within the restrictions of some noise considerations that would limit the sound systems to be so that they're audible only within the lot of the drive-through, both for the pickup window and for both for the ordering window and the pickup window. And in that regard, I just want to point out that the vacant residential lot just north of there, I call it north, some would say northwest, that if there were a house still sitting there by the willow tree that's still there, then that would be within maybe more like 30 feet. So just because the house has been torn down would mean that if you pretend from a distance perspective, a real house built back up to where it was, the Peterson Plumbing House was there for years, that would mean that they have to work carefully with audible restrictions. And I don't think that's really a technical issue that can't be handled. It just needs to be guided upon. That's my time. So where's the gong show? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. If you would like to answer any of their questions, clarify, that would be outstanding, or you can just wrap up.
Mary Beth, remind me procedurally, if we as a board have questions, may we ask that of the applicant?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we can still ask.
Okay, that was a lot of questions. We'll try to be brief and address them as much as we can. First things first, Mr. Hubbard, I think you might have made a better case than anyone why that should be a parking lot on the other side of the alley, honestly. But as far as parking goes, if you look at it right now, Sarkis is the only thing that is on that site. There is nothing in any direction to Sarkis, and there's only the blind side of CVS. So people, I think, will park and take advantage of places where they can park because there is no one to see what they're doing. And having Nick's on the corner will actually probably remedy this more than you think, because it's going to put a building with people coming to see it, and I don't think there's going to be as much ease to park on the residential lot, which is your concern, having another business actually on the corner on the side, which is vacant and it's empty. And as far as traffic goes, this used to be a parking station before it was nothing for 10 years. And I'm 100% sure that there was more traffic going in and out of that gas station than there ever will be from Nick's. So I don't see how these arguments really are constructive in any way. And as far as the extra parking that we're trying to make work with Sarkis, I think it should be commended that we're trying to use an existing parking lot between two businesses, and there is a bit of an overlap of when they're busy, but there's also a huge difference in the hours when Nick's will probably be most busy, which is in the evening when Sarkis is not. And we've looked at all of these conditions, and certainly Mr. Britson has considered the site and knows what he's doing to plan to open a business there. So I think you're speculating quite a bit of what will or will not happen with this restaurant. And as far as the speaker for the menu board, again, this is the least offensive place that we could put it. It's facing inside the site and towards a wall that has 0 windows or anything else, and certainly we will submit whatever is necessary to show that the noise levels will be kept to a minimum. It's channeled towards the person who is driving and placing an order. It's not something that is spread across the entire site just uncontrollably, but certainly we can provide that. And yes, the deliveries will be difficult to make, but I think Mr. Britson has already mentioned that we're willing to work with whatever we can to make it work with the existing conditions, with the alley, with the drive-through, to have as little disturbance as possible to the neighborhood. So that's kind of all of them in a nutshell from that side. And if you want to add anything or no? No? Okay. Yeah.
I had 2 questions of clarification. One is, can you clarify the number of seats both inside and outside?
So yes, we had a bit more before when we were placing more tables on the outside, and it was quite congested. So I think we're hoping for maybe 12 to 16 people on the outside at best, maybe like 4 tops. There is a bar on the ground floor, which would be maybe like 10, 11 people or so, and then we reduced the tables on the inside to maybe 8 or so on the ground floor. I had to look at it. And then the mezzanine reduced quite a bit. You'll see there's like 6 chairs right now on the top, and we're planning to add an office, maybe do some shifting around. So I don't think it's going to be the 40, which counted for everyone sitting inside and out at the same time. So we're significantly under that. We just don't have a solid number yet, but we're reducing the tables. It was too congested.
And is this the only site that you've considered in Evanston? Are you particularly looking at new construction?
New construction outside of this particular lot? Because we've already purchased this lot.
Oh, you have. Thank you.
So this will be an owned building. So I know that there is some issues with what happens if the business goes under. We'll own everything. So heaven forbid that happens. We're committed to making it work. So if it takes 1 year, it'll take 1 year. If it takes 3 years, we'll find the money to do it. So nobody really has to worry about a restaurant sitting vacant for any period of time.
So
we'll
just
be around for a while.
to clarify then, are you the owner?
Yes. I'm 50%. Partners on the West Coast. Somebody asked about ownership.
It's an LLC.
Owner of the lot, it's Zavy Chai LLC. My partner's name is Neil Zavy, so he purchased the lot. We're 50-50 partners in Nick's Organic.
So Zavy Chai owns the lot, or Nick's Organic owns the lot?
Zavy Chai owns the lot.
Okay.
Nick's Organic will be built on the lot.
But you are a 50% owner in each of those 2 businesses, Zavy Chai and Nick's Organic.
No. I'm only ownership in Nick's Organic Fast Food. I'm the founder and owner.
But your partner owns Zavy Chai.
So do you have a ground lease then for the lot from your partner?
It's going to be a lease back, yeah.
Okay.
So Zavy Chai is owned by your partner.
Correct.
And your partner is going to lease the lot, or lease the ability to use the lot to Nick's.
Back to Nick's.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, we're not paying a lease, but yes.
So if you're not paying a lease, then that could be considered his capital contribution to the LLC then, the lot.
Well, he also owns the other property as well. And the initial investment for Rolling Meadows.
Oh, the other, okay. Okay, but he doesn't own another lot here in Evanston?
No.
The other
No,
lot
this is-
he owns is in
Correct.
Rolling Meadows?
That's,
Okay,
yeah, he owns a lot of lots.
okay.
But this particular one he purchased for Nick's in this area.
Okay. But you will have Nick's will have a lease of some form for
Yes.
the lot?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Just with no dollar value?
That's correct.
Okay. Or something nominal?
Right, $1.
Okay, okay.
How long a lease if you have it in place?
How long's your lease in Rolling Meadows?
It's a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options.
Is that the same setup where Xavier owns the lot in Rolling Meadows and leases it back, or is that a different situation?
It's quite complicated, but it works.
It's a similar situation
Similar
where he
situation.
owns the lot and leases it
Correct.
back to
And
you?
leases it back to Nick's.
Okay.
Right.
And what is most compelling to you about this site? Like, why? I understand that you grew up in Evanston, but why do you see this site, given the irregular configuration? Why are you so smitten with this site and sure that it's going to lead to successful business for you?
Understood. Well, I've grown up in the area. I grew up in Evanston and moved to Glenview, so I know the area quite well. I also know that it's really the only drive-through outside of, the majority of the drive-throughs in Skokie, that's nearby. So Evanston, Skokie, Wilmette, can all come up and eat organic food. Not only that, but it's a perfect size lot for something that's very quaint and small. And again, we're not looking to be a big boy in terms of size of our drive-throughs. We just want to we want to be a major chain, but we want to be also relatable to the neighborhood. So we thought this lot was appropriate.
Anything else from the board? Anything else you guys want to say?
Nothing else for me.
Sorry, I'll just ask one more question, which I thought was a good suggestion. Have you spoken to Sarkis about how they take their deliveries?
I have not spoke to her yet. I will, though.
It seemed like a good suggestion because I agree. I don't think you're getting any semi trucks in that alley. I don't see how that can possibly work.
Okay. Well, again, it's only one, so we'll figure. I mean,
It's one or two times a week.
Right.
And it's not going to happen. It's not going to, that angle of turn is not going to work for a semi truck.
Well, I'll see how Sarkis does it.
Not only won't the angle of turn work, but to the valid point raised, truck driver's not going to take the time to make it. So I think you need to have a different solution.
Sure. Our truck drivers are pretty nice, though. We have a very tight squeeze as well. If you look at our Rolling Meadows plan, our setback is quite a lot. They have to make a huge right turn and have to go. It's tough for them as well, but they make it work, and the business makes them do it so that they can make the delivery, make the drop. But we'll figure it out. However we need to do it to make it work, we'll make it work. And maybe I can get we can work something out with Sarkis where we use that portion of the lot so they don't have to come in through the alley. But we'll get it moving.
Anyone else? Is what you're writing pertinent? Not yet. Yeah, I was going to say that. Okay. All right. I think we're done. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time tonight. And is the other gentleman from Gewalt Hamilton, so he didn't get to say anything?
I'm with the architect.
Okay. Thought, good Lord, you've had the traffic guy here all night, and he didn't get to say anything. Okay, with that, we're going to close the record and deliberate. Thoughts?
I love the business concept. I will be a customer of your business. If you are here in Evanston, I am your target market. My biggest concern is the deliveries. I think that some of these other issues, the speaking volume, sort of the noise and light pollution, I think that you guys have, addressed rather thoughtfully given the site. I think the deliveries are going to be the biggest issue to handle given, some of the turning radius and the configuration of the roads and, a potential for a semi truck there. And I think that's my biggest concern right now.
I agree completely. That's my biggest concern also. But I do believe, I think it's telling that the neighbor that, I apologize, sir, didn't catch your name, but no. I think it's telling that the neighbor that raised the suggestion that they speak to Sarkis about how those deliveries are taken, specifically said he couldn't say how Sarkis takes their deliveries, which means it's being done in some way that's not obtrusive to the neighborhood. Well, to the neighbor that spoke, he's unaware of how those deliveries are made. That's my 2 cents on that. So I think the delivery issue is resolvable. And I just wanted to add on top of this, we're talking about a proposed use for a lot that's been empty for 10 years, and that's not good for anyone. It's not good for the neighborhood, and it's not good for the city of Evanston. And it certainly is a use that will involve traffic. And however, my personal view is that the economics, the microeconomics of the limited number of parking spaces will work itself out. And people will not come to the restaurant if they have no place to park unless they intend to just drive through, which is the business model of the restaurant to begin with. I also think that the other issues can be accommodated through recommended conditions for the special use requested. And I think it seems like this applicant, in my judgment, seems willing and wanting to work with the neighborhood to try to install a business that you're happy with. And so I have faith that can happen. And in my view, between the applicant's seemingly honest intentions and our ability to impose recommended conditions, that the project seems like a good use of a space that needs something.
I would just add to what you're saying, Scott. I thought it was interesting to note when the project team reminded me that the former use here was in fact a gas station. So, which would likely have a lot more confusing and chaotic circulation, on the street and exiting the site. Whereas, the circulation is proposed on this site, is orderly, and I think has been thought, there has been thought, obviously, in consideration and discussion with DAPR in terms of the circulation and how cars are entering and exiting the site.
To add to that, is there a way that we can condition a signage that says, right turn only onto Crawford?
Not onto Crawford.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to Crawford,
No entry onto Crawford.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be conditioned. I think that's going to be a necessity on the permit side, that
Right.
they're going to have to put in those signs. So I don't think that needs to be a condition from us.
Okay.
I have to say, I like the project as well. I think that having this use in that spot is a good fit. I think you'll get draw from not only Glenview, not only Wilmette and Skokie and Evanston, but you will draw Glenview as well. And so I think you're at the corner of where organic really lives. And so I think it's a smart spot from that perspective. I really want to give you guys kudos for what the neighbors think is an unset plan, is being flexible to be able to meet the needs of what the neighbors are saying and what the city is saying. So your willingness to modify the plan and to make changes to, for example, remove one of the variances, I think is a really good thing. I appreciate that sort of effort on your behalf, on our behalf, of getting that out of this situation. And I do think that the way that the current ingress and egress is laid out is the best option for that lot. I happen to believe in microeconomics as well, and I really think that, if there's not enough parking, nobody will stop there. And with any luck, that's the way it'll be, and that'll get you your 1.2 million, because I want you to be successful. I don't want an empty building there and don't want an empty lot for the next 10 years. So I think that's all, so I think that's good. So I appreciate your efforts on that, in that direction. All right, so before I go through standards, it's just gonna take me like a half an hour. Do you want to go through how we want to condition delivery hours, potentially delivery truck size, delivery location, operation hours?
I
Parking?
would recommend on the delivery piece
Yeah.
that what we condition is that the applicant produce to city council, who we're only recommending to anyway.
Yep.
That it produced to city council a concrete plan for the timing and location of deliveries.
Okay.
Including a truck turning diagram that would demonstrate how trucks will make those deliveries and specifically where, and that plan be acceptable to council.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. I think that gives them time. What's the time frame for their next meeting? Do they have enough time to work that out? I'm getting the head shake, so hustle on it. So do we want to condition delivery hours though, and operation hours and employee parking?
Yes, I mean, yes, all of that. I mean, in terms of truck delivery hours, I don't think we should condition a set hours. I think that should be part of the plan. And it strikes me that,
I would like to condition that there's no delivery on the street.
oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
Sorry,
Don't be stupid.
1000%.
Given the close residential, you may want to limit when deliveries cannot occur.
So they can't occur between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, probably way earlier than
10
10 p.m. for deliveries.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Giving the outside range. I'd be irritated to hear idling if I was trying to fall asleep. Though I do have jet airplanes going through my house now.
What were the, you
There's
said
that.
10 a.m. and 6 a.m.? Sounded like the optimal delivery window may be.
I think their optimal delivery time was during breakfast, which is like between 6 and 10 in the morning. So I was thinking no deliveries between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 a.m. I don't know.
Oh, it would have to be later than 5 a.m. What is the noise ordinance? When is the noise ordinance in place?
Oh, good Lord.
Isn't that 7 to 10, 7 before 7 and after 10?
I believe it's 7 a.m.
To me, that would be a reasonable
10
morning.
p.m. and 7 a.m.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's.
So no deliveries between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Okay.
I also think it's reasonable to add a condition, certainly for the no employee parking on the residential streets, and frankly, that there should be designated employee parking provided to the extent necessary, provided by the business to the extent needed.
Okay.
And also a condition related to the, I don't think having a condition that no noise emanate from the property is a reasonable one.
Yeah.
It is a commercial property that you all live near. However, I do think that we can condition that the noise emanating from the drive-through speaker be limited to, a level the maximum level needed to be heard from the car.
Okay. The only other way I can think to do it is like an air conditioner condenser, right? Can't be more than 65 decibels at the lot line. So
That works for me.
one of the two. 65 decibels at the lot line is loud.
That doesn't mean anything, though, to me. Like, someone described it as a normal speaking volume, and that made sense to me.
Yeah.
So the people that are conversing can hear each other, but you're not hearing it, 10 feet away. Maybe from a technical, you decide, but
No, I agree, because a neighbor who sees that condition isn't going to go out there and say, I think we're at like 70 decibels.
Well, you're also going to have the speaker actually bounce off of the wall, the solid wall, back onto the building itself.
Yeah.
So as your
It would be best if
neighbors
there
down.
was It would be best if there was landscaping opposite the speaker to absorb it rather than to have the echo chamber happen. So to the extent that there's space in the floor plan, and I can't remember, in the site plan, it would be best to get a screening wall there, some nice arborvitae, suck up the sound. Okay. So do you want to say that? Do you want to say about the landscaping, or do you just want to say it's at a speaking level?
I think at a speaking level.
Okay. How about operation hours? I forget, you said breakfast wasn't huge, right? So you don't want to be open at 6 a.m.? 6 seems so early in that neighborhood, but what's Starbucks hours? What's Subway's hours? Subway's serving breakfast. God, I think they got big hours too. I think they got late hours.
I believe Subway is limited and they're not allowed to open that early.
Really?
Starbucks is open that early.
Starbucks opens at least 6, maybe.
I think they're open earlier.
Maybe 5:30.
Okay. You guys want to 6 to 10? Yes? No?
Yes, but didn't they ask for later hours on weekends?
No,
Yeah,
I think they
so
wanted 8 p.m.
Well, Saturday and Sunday it was till 9.
Right, so I said 10,
Right.
because 10
Is that
seems
consistent with,
with what's going on in the neighborhood.
what are Sarkis hours of operation?
No idea.
They close at 5, I believe.
They close at 5 p.m.
I'd say 6 to 10 is.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
That seems
6 to
reasonable.
10.
Okay.
Starbucks is 4:30.
What?
I thought,
4:30? What time do they take deliveries?
I've driven past there before and had it be closed.
I think 6 to 10 seems reasonable.
Yeah. 6 to 10. What else? Any other conditions? What else are we conditioning?
The only other thing I thought of was perhaps making sure that the backside of the property meets a balance of lighting that covers safety and light pollution to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Did you want a condition about dimming the other lighting?
Oh, yes. Auto dimming the building at night. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me on that one.
So the lights will be dim after hours.
We do it for LED screens. We should do it for. Should do it for buildings.
Exactly.
So, do we want to do this as 2 again? One with the variances and one with the special use? We're gonna. All right, let's go down these standards for major variations. All right, number 1, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. This property is zoned as a commercial use, and so in the past, it's had a life as a gas station, which is certainly a much more intensive, high-intensity use than what is currently being proposed. So I don't think that this particular use will have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of the adjoining neighborhood. So I think that standard has been met.
I would just add,
Yep.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I believe another reason why it's met is because the current use, which is as an empty lot, I think has a much more substantial adverse impact on the adjoining properties than a fruitful use.
Noted. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The intent of the zoning ordinance is to allow for businesses to be developed and to create a vibrancy in the neighborhoods and an economic base for neighborhoods. And so I think that getting an income-producing property and tax-paying use on that lot will create that. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to this property. For the variances, the hardship here is that it is a smaller lot and that it is a corner lot, and corner lots are notoriously difficult for getting ingress and egress. And so the variance is primarily coming up because of getting appropriate parking levels on the front. So the option is to not get a variance for that, but then get a variance on parking. And I feel that it is substantially more important to get parking correct rather than a side or a rear yard or lot line. So I do believe that that standard has been met.
I agree, and I think the neighbors would agree, having raised parking is one of their major concerns.
Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to carried out. In looking at the plans, there's not a lot of fat in the building size. And so I don't believe that there's a way to reasonably shrink the building size and keep the parking at the size that it is, that's necessary for it to be usable parking. So I think that there's a particular hardship here that they would not be able to have the layout that's necessary for a functioning business. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 5, I believe that this doesn't fall in since it's a commercial endeavor, I think that the public benefit standard applies here, and this goes really to the idea of a public benefit to that property being developed and having a vibrant economic use on that corner versus an empty lot. And so I do believe that that is the primary public benefit. In addition to a pretty nice looking building that will have a good amount of landscaping. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. The property is as the owner purchased it, and so that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, this goes back to the size of the building and the size of parking, and those being the minimum sizes necessary to get some functioning use out of that lot and to get some economic development back happening on that corner. So I do believe that standard has been met.
I agree with your assessment.
So now I need a motion. And that one's going to be fairly hairy.
Okay. I'll make a motion in the matter of 17 ZMJV-0064 regarding the property at 2628 Grosse Pointe Road, that we recommend to City Council that these variations be granted, subject to the condition that the property be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted, and subject to the condition that the special use that's being requested also is granted on whatever terms and conditions we impose for that.
Excellent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? With a vote of 4-0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for your major variations. We will now consider the standards for special use. There are 9 of those, and the first is it one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance? And it is. Number 2, is it in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time? As mentioned earlier tonight, the purpose of the comprehensive general plan encourages promoting growth and redevelopment to strengthen our economic base. And this is certainly doing that by creating a new development that will drive business to the area and drive customers to the area and drive sales tax growth and property tax growth and all that good stuff. So I do believe that that standard has been met. 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect on the proposed type of special use on the city as a whole. Now, there is a fair amount of type 2 restaurants on that particular corner. Given that, and that there is a lot of traffic in that corner already, I don't think we're causing a negative cumulative effect. I think the bulk of traffic to the site will be from people who already passed through that corridor and that intersection. So I don't see that there's going to be a negative cumulative effect. So I think that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of the properties in the neighborhood. Given that this is a commercial, zoned commercial, some commercial use of some sort was going to go in this location in any case. And so I don't think that the use being commercial is going to diminish the value of the properties in the neighborhood. And in fact, the vacant land diminishes the value more than a thriving business that is well taken care of. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. I don't think that they're causing any undue strain on sewer, water, and certainly the site engineering will be required for a permit, and so any water runoff will certainly be addressed. So I believe that that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. Based on the documents on file, which are the traffic engineering study from Gwalt Hamilton, the anticipated increase in traffic in the area is very limited and will increase traffic in those intersections by roughly, I think it was 18 to 21 seconds or something like that, which I think is a minor inconvenience for the benefit of having that economic engine in that corner. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. That is not applicable. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. I don't think that's applicable either. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. And I do believe that has been met given our recommendation of approval of the major variations. So.
I agree. So I'll make a motion.
Excellent.
In the matter 17 ZMJV-0064 regarding the property at 2628 Grosse Pointe Road, I move that we recommend to City Council that the special use requested be granted on the following conditions. 1, that employees will be prohibited from utilizing residential parking while at work, and that the business will provide parking for employees in some acceptable location. 2, that the hours of operation for the business be limited from the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. 3, that City Council's approval be conditioned on its acceptance of, and that the applicant submit to City Council in advance of its meeting so it can be considered, a plan regarding the timing, location, and truck turning diagram for all deliveries that will be made. Timing, location, and a truck turning diagram that City Council approves of. 4, that noise emanating from the drive-through speakers will be limited to a speaking level maximum necessary to be heard from a car speaking into or conversing with this person on the other end of the speaker. 5, with respect to the lighting, that the building lights will automatically dim after business hours, and that the property will maintain a balance of lights that provide for safety on the property at night, but also minimum amount of light pollution to the neighborhood. And 6, that the property otherwise be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted.
I have a friendly amendment of delivery hours, that they not occur between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Thank you for reminding
7
me.
a.m.
Yes.
10 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Yes. So the delivery plan will include a prohibition on any deliveries between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? With a vote of 4-0, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project.
I would also just encourage you to continue to work with the neighbors and with your aldermen to make sure everybody's happy with what ends up in the space.
Okay, the other thing we were going to talk about were text amendments to refer to Plan Commission. I say we push that off to the next meeting because I'm beat.
Did anybody circulate?
Who was
Text
going to
amendments?
circulate? I was just going to, bust all 20 of them out. I think I only have 3
I think it would be helpful to circulate them
ahead of time.
ahead of time. and they can be included in the packet then
Okay,
for discussion.
okay. I
It
think
would
we
help
can-
me to, it would help me certainly to think about them if I saw
Ahead of
them.
time? Yeah, okay. I think we can probably do that. I think their next meeting is a joint meeting with Plan Commission, so I don't think we'll do it there. But our next regularly scheduled meeting, though I may not be at that one, if it's in September. What? Oh, I just got the eyes. I get to go on vacation, don't I? It was both, and a side eye. It was all three of them at once. All right, so we're going to move that to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I raise a motion to adjourn.
Wait, can we just work out when we're going to get those to Melissa by so that we can see them in advance? I guess early enough that they can be included in the packet? Or would we not include them in the packet?